I just realized my mic was muted this entire time. I do apologize. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start again. Wow, that's really embarrassing. I didn't realize my mic was muted. All right, sorry about that. I was not paying attention. Thank you guys. I don't have chat on, my bad. All right, we're gonna go back through what I just said. So again, what we have right now back over in the central Atlantic Ocean is a new tropical depression that is gonna become a tropical storm. Again, it's a junk storm. It's moving off to the north, and this is currently not gonna produce any impact to land. It'll impact the fish out there, but again, no impacts to land are expected over there. Back over further to the west, there's currently Hurricane Franklin ongoing. This is a Category 4 hurricane. This is moving off to the north and northeast. It has weakened over the past 24 hours. It'll impact Bermuda with tropical storm impacts, so some storm surge and as well as potentially some rip currents there along the coastline. In addition to that, there will be some tropical storm force winds, but this will stay off to the west of Bermuda. So again, a low-end Category 4 hurricane now. It has weakened over the past 24 hours. Now, the entire point of this live stream, again, is right now what's ongoing with Hurricane Idalia. This is right now moving off to the north. It has intensified over the past 24 hours, and in addition to that, it has an increased storm surge risk now across parts of the west coast of Florida, and we've also seen an increase of that across parts of the east coast of not just Florida, but also through Georgia and South Carolina. So it's a pretty large area. And this has intensified quite a bit. So as of right now, it is a Category 1 hurricane. Sustained winds are up to 85 miles per hour. Wind gusts are as high as 105 miles per hour now, and this is currently moving off to the north. The pressure with this is down to 900 and 76 millibars, and this is pretty concerning because again, it is intensifying very quickly. It is moving off to the north. We are expecting rapid intensification over the next 24 hours as this moves into the eastern and northeastern side of the Gulf of Mexico. As of right now, the National Hurricane Center has this forecasted to become a Category 2 hurricane sometime this afternoon, if not the evening hours, and then eventually it'll become a Category 3 hurricane, potentially near a Category 4 as this approaches the Big Bend of Florida. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has this at 125 mile per hour wind speed, which would be 5 miles per hour short of a Category 4 hurricane. So there is a potential that this does get to a Category 4 hurricane if that rapid intensification process is successful later tonight. We'll have to watch this again very closely as it moves further off to the north-northeast at about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Again, it's a pretty quick moving storm. A quick comparison, by the way, with Ian. Ian made landfall with about 9 miles per hour of speed. This will be making landfall with about 17 miles per hour of speed. So just kind of get the idea there that this will not be nearly as much of a flooding risk because of how fast this will be moving off to the north and northeast. Again, that's almost double speed right there. But again, Category 3 hurricane forecasted to make landfall tomorrow morning, sometime around 8 to 10 in the morning. So that's the ETA. Again, the cone of uncertainty has shrunk further. So right now, the National Hurricane Center does think, and I do think as well, that this will make landfall somewhere between Cedar Key and possibly as far west as Tallahassee. This is the region here that we're looking at currently for where this will make landfall. So if you're anywhere in this area, that is where the greatest storm surge potential will be. But don't forget, even outside of this cone of uncertainty, there will be a potential for not just tropical storm impacts, but also hurricane impacts. That includes Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay is still forecast to get upwards of 7 feet of storm surge. So that is a big concern. Again, storm surge is the #1 killer when it comes to hurricanes, and it really is dangerous. It's literally the most dangerous impact with a hurricane. It's not really the wind speed. It usually is actually the storm surge. So keep that in mind if you're right along the immediate coastline, and if you're in a storm surge area, and if you're right along the beach, you should be taking those mandatory evacuation orders seriously if you have any of those. After it goes through Florida, it will weaken into a tropical storm as it goes into southeast Georgia as we head into Wednesday night, and this will be back down near the Brunswick area. That's where the eye will be, with sustained winds near 65 miles per hour. As this continues to ride along the coastline, it will continue to weaken since it's not really over water. So eventually this will weaken down to sustained winds around 50 miles per hour. And then eventually this will start to take possibly a little bit of a U-turn. So right now there's a lot of computer models have been indicating recently in the past 24 hours as this could actually take a U-turn back toward Florida. It is actually possible, even though I would say it's unlikely, but it's less likely that would happen, but it is becoming a bit more likely. It has not been that likely for the past 24 hours, but we're seeing a lot more computer models indicating that this could go back toward Florida. If that does happen, I'm not that concerned about this right now. It would probably be a tropical storm if it went back toward the east coast of Florida. So again, we'll keep you posted with the latest. There's still a lot of days though until that even happens. It's still about 5 to 7 days out, which a lot of things could change in between now and then. Here's the current live look at the satellite or infrared imagery right now back over in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. And notice how this thing is starting to intensify. We're starting to see an eye form right here in the center. So this is intensifying right now. In the past really hour or so, it's becoming a bit more organized, and it's still pretty healthy. Huge convection around this. We have those convective towers that are building with this. We have some of the outer bands also entering into Florida. So we are starting to see some Florida impacts now with some showers and storms along the immediate coastline. And then back over in the Florida Keys, notice there is thunderstorm activity right now that is moving in toward Cape Coral, as well as Northport. And don't forget, there is a tornado risk today along the coastline and as well as back through inland. Notice these outer bands right now. This is a live look at the radar from Key West. You can actually see the eye of this right now on the live radar feed. It's right there. It's kind of on the left side a little bit of that direct line. So that's where the eye is. It's actually moved a little bit down to the west at this point. It's moving a little bit north-northwest, but this is going to continue to move off to the north for the most part. It'll be doing a little bit of wobbling here over the next 12 to 24 hours. So it'll kind of go back and forth a little bit, maybe a bit of a zigzag pattern, but overall you'll notice a lot of showers and storms here coming off, and they're starting to go toward Key West. A tornado risk will exist with this. That will really ramp up this afternoon. I'm not seeing a whole lot of rotation yet with any of this activity, but a tornado risk will definitely increase as we go throughout the afternoon. And once we go back closer to Cape Coral and the Tampa area, there are some showers and storms that are approaching these areas near Cape Coral. I'm not seeing again a whole lot of rotation with this activity, but I wouldn't rule out an isolated tornado as we go into the afternoon hours, not necessarily within the next couple hours. I think that risk stays overall fairly low here across the west coast of Florida until later this afternoon. Here's that tornado risk for today. We're going to go through the other forecast graphics here in a second, but here's the tornado risk for today. Pretty much all of Florida, excluding most of the Panhandle, so Tallahassee, Panama City, Pensacola, not included in this. But if you're anywhere in that green or as well as that yellow shaded area, that includes a risk for tornadoes. We will probably see at least a few tornadoes today, especially across this yellow shaded area. That is a slight risk of severe weather. Marginal threat outside of that. That means that slight risk is a slightly higher probability there of seeing a tornado. So overall, a few tornadoes are likely today. In addition to that, there will be a potential for a strong or even potentially violent tornado today. So that is the threat level here across Florida in terms of tornadoes. That is the current expectation that we will likely see at least a strong tornado, maybe two, going into today and as well as tomorrow. It's an overall low chance across the board because, again, not everybody's going to see tornadoes. They're usually pretty isolated to begin with, but make sure you have a tornado action plan in place because it'll definitely be a concern for today. And as well as going into tomorrow, there is another slight risk of severe weather for tornadoes. That goes all the way back through parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. This yellow shaded region indicates your overall tornado risk. That is an increased tornado risk. The green shaded region here does indicate another tornado risk, but it's going to be slightly lower overall. That goes all the way back through North Carolina and then back into parts of central Florida, back near Port St. Lucie and Cape Coral. But overall, the threat of tornadoes will be during the morning and early afternoon tomorrow for Florida. It'll be more during the afternoon and evening if you're back over in the Carolinas. All right, let me take this off and let's start going to some of the forecast graphics. All right, here we go. So this is the current look again on the infrared imagery, just another look at it, but this is what it looks like on infrared imagery back in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Again, as of right now, this is moving to the north. It is going toward Florida. We are starting to see that structure build more into that eye that we're starting to see in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. Again, you've probably already seen that. I'll show it again in a few minutes on Radar Omega. Here's what Franklin looks like now. So this is Hurricane Franklin. Again, the eye has become a bit more disorganized. It's a bit unhealthier than before, but still a pretty good hurricane right now with, again, sustained winds around 130 miles per hour. It is still a Category 4 hurricane. This is what Franklin will do over the next 24 to 48 hours, or really over the next 5 days. Again, it is going to continue to stay as a major hurricane near Bermuda. It'll eventually weaken as it moves off to the east and eventually into a tropical storm as it goes into the northern Atlantic Ocean, and eventually it'll weaken. Again, no impacts to land are expected there. This is what right now Hurricane Idalia looks like. Again, the cone of uncertainty is just to the north of Tampa and just to the east and southeast of Tallahassee. That is where we're expecting landfall tomorrow, but impacts will be felt again across the entire west coast of Florida. Tropical storm watches are still in effect for parts of the Florida Keys. Tropical storm warnings south of Tampa, back near the, really south of Bradenton as well, south of Sarasota. This goes through Cape Coral and southwest Florida, and then we also have hurricane warnings in effect in that red shaded area. And again, I'll show you more specific details on what that looks like here in just a few minutes. And then overall, back over on the East Coast, we have tropical storm warnings. That does include a large chunk of the East Coast of Florida, back into South Carolina. Tropical storm watches in effect for those back up in North Carolina. And the tropical storm warnings means that there's going to be some storm surge potential as well for some flooding rains, and as well as a threat for some tropical storm force winds. And again, the difference between a watch and a warning, depending on where you are, a watch means that there is a possibility for tropical storm or hurricane conditions in the next in the next 48 hours. Depends on which watch you're in. There's really, I don't think, any hurricane watches anymore. I'm pretty sure it's just tropical storm watches. So the tropical storm watches means there's a possibility for tropical storm conditions in the next 24 or 48 hours. I keep saying 24. Also, for the warnings, that means within the next 36 hours, hurricane or tropical storm conditions are likely. Again, depending on which warning you're in. If you're in a tropical storm warning, that means that's likely in the next 36 hours that you'll see tropical storm conditions. Here are the watches and warnings. Again, just a little bit more of a different map here. Here's the wind field. The wind field is pretty large right now. We are starting to see tropical storm force winds on the very far western Florida Keys now, so that's beginning to ramp up. We're going to start seeing that more on the west coast of Florida later today. All right, this is a big deal here because we are seeing a huge increase from the National Hurricane Center in terms of storm surge, and they have upgraded their forecast quite substantially for storm surge. Storm surge up to now 15 feet is possible between Yankeetown and Osceola River. This is a brand new update from the 11 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center. Osceola River back through Yankeetown, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is possible. It's actually likely at this point that we'll see that peak storm surge around 10 to 15 feet. Again, we do have the blue supermoon tomorrow night, which means the tides will be 1 to 2 feet higher, so this makes it just that much worse. But this is a higher forecast than Ian was for storm surge, believe it or not. So this is going to be really concerning here if you're along this area and you're in the beach area, or if you're like within 10 feet of sea level on the coast there, you're definitely going to want to make sure you're evacuating. Go to the National Hurricane Center's website and check out the storm surge map and look and see if your area is in this area from Yankeetown back through the Osceola River, because that's the area again where we'll see the greatest storm surge out of this event. Very, very concerning here, though. That is really significant storm surge. Again, life-threatening deal here. Make sure you're evacuating if you're right on the coastline there, because storm surge, again, is really, really, really dangerous. The worst part of hurricanes is storm surge. Further down to the south, we're talking about Yankeetown, and then back just through the Chassa area. That area will be watching for 7 to 11 feet of storm surge. Back from Anclote River and off to the north, 6 to 9 feet of storm surge. And between middle of Longboat Key to the Anclote River, and as well as Tampa Bay, all still looking at the threat of 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. So again, make sure you're taking mandatory evacuation seriously if you're in that area. Further down to the south near Key West, we'll be talking about 1 to 2 feet of storm surge, and also 1 to 3 feet from East Cape Sable back through the Choco-Lowski area. That's where we'll be looking at least some storm surge. And also back over in the Florida Panhandle, there will be a chance for storm surge. Panama City, again, not really forecasted to see storm surge right now, but it could go up to a feet or two. So still be weather aware there. And if you're right on the immediate coastline, definitely make sure you're monitoring that very closely. But inland, you should be fine. Not really expecting a whole lot of rain there right now. And in between all these areas, a bit more rural in this region, but we are still looking at anywhere from 3 to 9 feet of storm surge. Back over on the east coast of Florida, back through parts of North Carolina, notice there's a range here from the South Sante River all the way back through the mouth of the St. Mary's River. So that's basically from Georgia back through South Carolina. We are going to be looking at 2 to 4 feet of storm surge going into Wednesday. And then for those from the Flagler-Volusia County line all the way back through the mouth of St. Mary's River, we're also looking at 1 to 3 feet of storm surge on the immediate coastline. And then from Surf City, North Carolina, back through the South Sante River, again, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge is expected there. This is the live radar view from Cuba. We have a better radar view now from the Key West area, but you can kind of just see how this has evolved over the last 6 hours. So just want to throw that out there. Timestamps at the top right of your screen, but again, this has begun to intensify more. We're seeing more of a closed eye now developing, so this will continue to intensify. I mentioned this earlier, but I was muted, so we don't really have, I think I was muted at least when I was saying this, but this is what we're looking at in terms of the overall long-term track of Hurricane Idalia. So again, it will make landfall most likely around, if not just north of Cedar Key. That's the current forecasted landfall. All the models are really in unison now that it will make landfall up in the Big Bend. Really, again, this will not take a sharp right-hand turn toward Tampa. It's just not happening. We don't have that sort of turn here in the environment. And again, the ridge that's back over in the Bahamas or just southeast of the Bahamas is strong enough that it will pull it just far off to the north to stay away from Tampa on a direct landfall. And the troughing that's back up here is not strong enough for this thing to, or even far south enough for this to just all of a sudden take a turn toward Tampa. So it will not take a direct impact to Tampa, but Tampa will still be seeing the threat for tornadoes, as well as storm surge up to 7 feet, and as well as the potential for some flooding rainfall. And those are obviously big concerns. Tropical storm and maybe even hurricane force winds will be possible there as well. But long term, notice this will continue to ride along the East Coast. It'll go out to sea, but notice almost every computer model over the last 12 hours has indicated this thing will start to take a turn back to the west. So this is kind of interesting. We could see this actually go back toward Florida as we go into potentially maybe next week or so. I mean, that's what we'll be looking at possibly next like Monday or Tuesday. This could start to go back to the west, and that could actually impact Florida again. So we might see another possible tropical storm go toward Florida out of this. So it might take a double shot. Again, I don't remember the last time we saw something like this, but it is a possibility. There's still a lot of uncertainty, though. That's pretty far out still. We're talking, you know, over 5 days out from now that would occur. So there's still a lot of time between now and then where things could very well change. If that troughing up here does keep up with this hurricane as it moves into the Atlantic Ocean, then this would just go out to the east. But if it doesn't keep up and it goes well ahead of it, this very well could cycle back toward Florida. So a very interesting little setup there. We'll watch that very closely. All right, the computer models, this is the latest run on all the computer models. Most of them are still bringing this to a category 2 or 3 hurricane. It's more likely than not, with rapid intensification expected later today, that this would become a category 3 hurricane. There is still a low chance this becomes a category 4, so we'll keep you posted if anything does change there. All right, let's talk about the future radar. We're going to begin with the RRF model. Again, this is more of a prototype computer model, so it is not going to really, again, it's not really for decision making, but I'm at least going to show you because this is pretty much what will end up happening. So as we go throughout the afternoon today, we'll have these outer bands entering into western Florida. Notice these outer bands here. Those will be the ones capable of producing that tornado threat as we go into the later afternoon. So around 4 or 5 o'clock near Tampa, Cape Coral, and Sarasota. That is where the potential for tornadoes will start to ramp up this afternoon. As we go into the evening by 7 to 8 o'clock, storms continue to move to the north and east. So going toward Orlando, going toward Daytona Beach, and as well as going inland, so along Interstate 4 there. Eventually by 9 to 10 o'clock, more of these outer bands continue. This outer band, again, will have the greatest chance for tornadoes. We'll have another outer band coming inland toward Tampa and Sarasota as we go closer to 10 o'clock. Another chance there for maybe a couple tornadoes. And as we go into the overnight hours, notice where this eye is by around 6 in the morning. We'll have more outer bands entering the coast going into Wednesday morning. And as these move into the north and northeast toward Orlando and Daytona Beach, we'll be watching for the threat here of, again, a few tornadoes as this moves inland. Notice where the eye is by 6 in the morning, so it'll be off to the north and west of Tampa. That is a bit misleading, though, because, again, there will be storm surge in Tampa regardless of where this is. So make sure you're staying very aware there. If you're in Tampa, there will be storm surge upwards of 7 feet. You want to make sure you're evacuating if you're in one of those evacuation areas for storm surge. Once we go closer to 7 to 8 in the morning, this will make landfall. Again, it could make landfall anywhere between here and Tallahassee back through Cedar Key. So there's still a pretty large area. This computer model in particular is showing more of a westerly landfall back over near Tallahassee, west of Gainesville. So again, this could make landfall further back to the west. Stay aware, though, because this could obviously make landfall much closer here to potentially Cedar Key, which would make the storm surge just a little bit worse there in Tampa, and winds would be much stronger near Gainesville as well. And then as we go closer to 10 and 11 in the morning, storms continue across Florida. Still a tornado risk all the way through tomorrow afternoon. Even into the evening, we could still see an isolated storm producing a tornado risk by then. And this is what I'm talking about in terms of storm surge. So these strong winds that we'll be seeing coming out of the south are all going to pull water up from south to north. That'll allow for winds to basically blow water. That's going to blow waves ashore, and that's going to push all that storm surge inland. So even by 1 in the morning going into the overnight hours, we're going to have those strong southerly winds going into Tampa Bay. That'll allow for storm surge in Tampa Bay and as well as along the west coast. Eventually by tomorrow morning, very rapid winds will start to really crank up, and I don't think it'll make landfall way over here, but this is just an example. Again, we'd see very strong winds wherever this makes landfall, and that would be able to push storm surge inland. I still think that the hurricane will make landfall closer to Cedar Key over here, so just keep that in mind. I think this computer model is way too far to the west, but again, I'm giving you an idea of where the landfall would be. And eventually going to Wednesday morning, again, that'll move off to the north and northeast. Storm surge will still be possible all the way through tomorrow afternoon because the winds will still be strong enough out of the west to be able to push water ashore, so keep that in mind. Storm surge will definitely be possible for about 24 hours. Here's the wind gust forecast from the latest run on the RRFS model, which again I feel like has the best estimation of wind gusts. This is what we're looking at in terms of tropical storm impacts, so we'll start to see that as we get closer around 5 o'clock near Tampa and Sarasota, and as well as Cape Coral. So notice those winds are really starting to pick up by then. As we go closer to 6 to 7 o'clock, winds are picking up further near 50 miles per hour. They'll start to peak probably closer to 60 to 70 miles per hour as we go into the overnight hours, and eventually as this moves closer to land, notice the winds really start to pick up near Tallahassee. Even Panama City will be watching for maybe some tropical storm force winds. But again, this eye could be well further out here to the east, closer to Cedar Key. That means this wind speed might be way lower, and that means this could be way higher. So again, there's still a little bit of uncertainty of where this exactly makes landfall, but if it does make landfall closer to Gainesville, that would mean that winds would be much higher, and really anywhere near Jacksonville and Daytona Beach would be higher as well in that sort of scenario. Eventually by 10 o'clock, we'll be watching winds again peaking as high as 90 to 100 miles per hour wherever this goes inland. And eventually, as we go into the afternoon hours, this will start to weaken out, so the winds will start to die down a little bit. But there'll still be tropical storm force winds for Florida probably all day tomorrow for the most part. Other than possibly southern Florida and western Florida, it will start to die down a little bit by then. In terms of rainfall totals, we are looking for a lot of rainfall depending on where you're at. So right now, the highest rainfall totals are expected to be near Gainesville, just west of there. Tampa, Sarasota, looking for 3 to 6 inches of rain. Isolated spots near 8 inches are possible. And then back over near Cedar Key, we are also watching for the threat of several inches of rain, possibly as high as 8 to 10 inches. That'll be the most rainfall we see out of this. Again, with Hurricane Ian that we saw last year, it was a much higher probability. It was actually way higher. I mean, that was back up closer to like 20 to 25 inches. Back near Tallahassee, you'll be looking at 2 to 4 inches of rain as well. And then back near Jacksonville, Daytona Beach, Orlando, probably 1 to 3 inches over that direction. We do have a tornado warning that has just been issued for the west coast of Florida. Let me update this count real quick. This is a new tornado warning that was just issued. This is over closer to south of Cape Coral. Pretty sure this is a pretty rural area. Seek shelter immediately away from windows and lowest floor possible. This is for Marco Island. So it's a brand new tornado warning. Again, this is currently in effect south of Naples. Seek shelter away from windows and lowest floor possible. Let's kind of read the details here. This is a radar indicated rotation. We don't have a great radar site here. Let me see if we can find a better one. Not seeing any great radar sites here. We're kind of in between a bunch of different radar sites. I think we'll have to go from this one over here. But the rotation's going to be located with this storm right here, just south of Marco Island. Again, seek shelter away from windows. And on the lowest floor possible, if you're in Marco Island or the Grocery Plain area. I'm not seeing any definitive rotation here on radar, but it's probably because we don't have a great view of the radar site. Actually, might be further back out here to the west. But seek shelter away from windows and lowest floor possible. Again, this is going to be moving toward Marco Island over the next several minutes. Yeah, this is a brand new tornado warning in parts of southwestern Florida, just south of Naples, Florida. And again, this tornado risk will start to really ramp up as we go into the afternoon hours today. So definitely make sure you're staying weather aware. It's definitely going to ramp up a lot more as we go throughout the day today. A few tornadoes are possible. We'll probably see a tornado watch at some point as well down the road. And that's definitely going to be a concern. All right, the rotation's back here. It's actually not even in this tornado warning yet. I had to confirm here. It's actually back here. But you should still seek shelter if you're in that area. These storms are moving pretty quickly. That's where the rotation's located. So again, seek shelter away from windows, lowest floor possible. There very well could be a little bit of rotation as well over here in this storm. I'm just trying to double check here. This is a severe thunderstorm capable of producing a water spout. It's 11 miles south of Cape Romano. I believe this is Cape Romano here. Trying to figure out the exact location here, but it's basically about 17 miles south of Marco Island, so I'm pretty sure they're talking about the southern storm here. Yeah, so that storm that's pretty much not in the warning yet, but it will be soon. That one is capable of producing a water spout, which could very well produce a tornado. So, and seek shelter if you're in this tornado warning away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. This is in Collier County, Florida. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. Again, I do apologize from earlier. I didn't know my mic was muted, but hopefully that wasn't too long. I don't know how many minutes I was into that. Yes, this is a tornado warning from the outer bands. This is what it looks like on live radar right now. So this is Idalia. That's back out here to the west. You'll see it on the live radar feed from Key West. It actually does show it on here, which is nice. I'll have to go to the 14 frame loop here. Yeah, radar's not loading. There we go. So here's what it looks like. Idalia back out to the west. This is the eye of the storm. So you can actually see it back out to the west. It's becoming, again, it's becoming pretty organized right now back over in the southeast Gulf of Mexico. And I am anticipating rapid intensification over the next 24 hours, which does mean that we'll probably see this go from a Category 1 to a Category 3 very quickly. It could make landfall as a Category 4 still. So keep that in mind. If you're back up near the Big Bend, there's a good chance that this does become at least a strong Category 3. If not, it could get to a very low-end Category 4 near sustained winds around 130 miles per hour. That would be the peak. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has bumped the readings on the overall forecast. It has gone up from 120 on landfall to 125 miles per hour. It might not sound like a big difference, but that's pretty close to a Category 4 level. And even 5 miles per hour can make a pretty big difference in between damage level, especially on the coastline. But again, storm surge is by far the biggest concern. If you've not already looked at the National Hurricane Center's outlook for storm surge, please go look at that on their website. Look at the map. They have a map on the National Hurricane Center website, and it'll show you where the storm surge will be the greatest out of this storm, because again, the storm surge is going to be a big kicker with this. That is the most concerning feature of this entire hurricane, is storm surge. Up to 15 feet of storm surge is possible along the west coast of Florida. That is primarily in the Big Bend. Up over near Tampa Bay, up to 7 feet is possible, which is still very concerning. So you want to make sure you're taking it very seriously over there. Again, if you're just tuning in, this is a tornado warning just south of Naples, Florida, for Marco Island Grocery Plain. Again, if you're in this tornado warning, seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. This was just issued in the last few minutes. Moving off to the north toward the Marco Island area. We are on the wrong radar site, but we're going to still go with it. See if we have any other view on this rotation. Again, the storm that's going to be impacting this area is still outside of the tornado warning. This is actually where the rotation's located. It's going to be back down here to the south. Again, this tornado warning goes for 23 minutes. There's another storm just south of Marco Island that is also producing some rotation. But the rotation itself is still outside of the tornado warning. It'll be in the tornado warning here shortly, and it'll eventually impact the Marco Island area. Again, this is radar indicated rotation. This does not mean any tornadoes on the ground yet, but it very well could be at any time as that moves off to the north. And I'm going to see if there's any other rotation here that we have to be concerned about. A couple little kinks that we're starting to see. Again, the tornado risk is really going to start to increase as we go into the afternoon and evening tonight. So we could see an isolated tornado or two throughout the next several hours, but that'll start to really ramp up as we go into the afternoon and evening hours. So, and tornado watch will probably be issued again, probably around, my guess is like 2 to 3 o'clock. I'll see if they've posted anything for a mesoscale discussion here. And this does include Goodland, Florida, and Marco Island, Florida. And if you know any friends or family in this area, make sure that they're in their safe place. Population of 17,000. Seeing if there's any mesoscale discussions here on this. Yeah, I'm not seeing any. So, as of right now, Tornado Watch probably won't be issued until later this afternoon. My guess. I will be live until 1:35 or 1:40. I have classes at 2:15, so I will have to leave after that point. But I'll probably be live again at some point tonight, is my guess. But I'll be live here for the next 2 hours. I go over Tropical Depression 11. Tropical Depression 11 will not be impacting the United States. This thing's staying well out to sea. It's not even going to really strengthen into much. It's a fish storm. This is what I would call a junk storm. I mean, it's going to get a name, but it's not going to impact anything by any means. It's really just out to sea. This is a tropical storm, or it will become a tropical storm. It'll move off to the north. If you know any fish in the area, make sure they're ready for that. But otherwise, that's going to be going out to sea. It's not going to get any stronger than a low-end category, or not category 1, sorry, a low-end tropical storm. There's a lot of shear in that area, so it's really not going to intensify into much. And again, if you're just tuning in, this is what Idalia looks like now. It is a Category 1 hurricane. Sustained winds are up to 85 miles per hour. This is moving off to the north. Again, this is going to be moving faster than Ian moved when it made landfall. Ian made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds at around 150, 155 miles per hour. In addition to that, it was moving at 9 miles per hour. This is going to be moving at 17 miles per hour upon landfall. So it's going to be moving much faster as it moves toward the Big Bend of Florida. That means the flooding risk will be a bit lower in terms of flooding rains. But we are still looking at storm surge, which will cause flooding along the coastline. And storm surge could be as high as 15 feet on the immediate coastline here near Cedar Key, north of Spring Hill, all the way back through these areas south of Tallahassee. Storm surge up to 15 feet is now possible. Again, if you've not already seen, this is the current forecast from the National Hurricane Center. In terms of the storm surge, again, it has been upgraded. This is one of the bigger upgrades that we had with the latest National Hurricane Center update that just came out about an hour ago now. The storm surge was upgraded up to 15 feet now from the Osceola River back through Yankeetown. So a big change in terms of this overall outlook. We are looking up to 15 feet of storm surge right in that area. Tampa Bay has not changed. They are still up to 7 feet of storm surge. So obviously, very concerning. Storm surge is the most concerning feature when it comes to hurricanes. And again, I'm not trying to panic you, but this is the most concerning feature. I'm telling you straight out. The number one killer when it comes to hurricanes is storm surge. So you want to make sure if you're along the immediate coastline, you're taking the proper precautions and you're making sure that you're evacuating if you're in one of those areas that is prone to storm surge, especially up to 15 feet. I mean, 15 feet is a serious deal. Hurricane Ian, by the way, last year, the highest forecasted storm surge was 8 to 12 feet. Just keep that in mind. This is up to 15 feet now. That's way higher than Ian was. So, again, we're going to see some pretty substantial impacts. And I already mentioned this before, but Cedar Key, I don't know if I know if you're in, I mean, there might be a couple viewers from Cedar Key, but if you're in Cedar Key right now, you should evacuate. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You really should evacuate if you're in Cedar Key right now. This area is so prone to really significant storm surge. This thing has one road in and out, and once that road's gone, you're not gonna be able to leave. That road's gonna be gone pretty quickly. It's probably gonna be broken down. That bridge is gonna be gone, is my guess. I'm just being straightforward with you guys. It really is a death wish if you're gonna stay on Cedar Key. It's really dangerous to stay there. Man, if you're on, I don't know what this place is. Lukens? I don't know if that's even a place, but it shows on the map. But really, if you're anywhere in these areas on the immediate coastline in the cone of uncertainty, you really should evacuate. And even if you're not in the cone of uncertainty down here and you're on the immediate coastline where storm surge is expected there, which it is across the entire west coast, you definitely want to make sure that you're looking at that map and checking to see, should I evacuate? Because areas in Tampa Bay should be evacuating if you're along that immediate coastline. Again, you can check out that map. It's on the National Hurricane Center's website. I'm going to put the link to it in chat, so if you want to check it out, feel free to. But that will be in the chat if you want to check that out. Again, they have a map on the National Hurricane Center website, and it'll tell you where the storm surge will be the most significant and where, how bad, all that sort of stuff. Again, if you're just tuning in, there is a tornado warning right now near Marco Island. The storm itself is now just moving into the tornado warning. The rotation is going to be located back down here, so it's pretty much on the cusp of it. Again, if you're in Marco Island, the Grocery Place area, Goodland, Florida, seek shelter away from windows and lowest floor possible. This tornado warning goes until 12:15. Idalia will not be worse than Katrina in terms of flooding. But storm surge, I'm not sure what the highest storm surge was with Katrina, but storm surge with this will be pretty substantial. And that is the biggest concern out of this will be storm surge. And as well as, I mean, there will be a tornado risk as well. The National Weather Service also just issued a huge special marine warning along the west coast. This is going to be for water spouts and wind gusts up to 50 miles per hour. So that's now in play. Again, this is the live radar feed currently on Idalia. Again, this is a hurricane, sustained winds of around 85 miles per hour. The eye has become a bit more closed off recently. It's becoming to intensify, and again, rapid intensification is very possible with this as it moves off to the north over the next several hours. Again, a strong Category 3, possibly even a low-end Category 4 will make landfall over the Big Bend of Florida. I've heard Tampa Bay Airport is closed today and tomorrow. Yes, Jacob, I am. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, you could correct me, but I'm pretty sure the Tampa International Airport is closed both today and tomorrow. I think they closed last night at 12. Or today at 12, if you want, a.m. I say last night because it just makes more sense to me. Let me check real quick on Twitter, see if we have any other updates on this. Again, a tornado watch could be issued at some point later today. Just keep that in mind. Again, the storm that will be producing that threat for a tornado is now entering into this very southern island here, just south of Marco Island. I'm not sure if there's any roads that even go into here. Looks like Morgan River. It looks like maybe a beach or something like that. So, again, Marco Island, if you're in Marco Island, seek shelter, as well as Goodland and west of Old Grove near Grocery Place. Again, this is an ongoing storm that has the potential to produce a tornado at any time. I'm not seeing a whole lot of rotation anymore, but it would be right in here would be where that tornado would be located. And a water spout is definitely possible with this, so, I mean, again, a water spout could even come on land and still produce a tornado briefly. And this is currently moving off to the north. But while we're waiting, because again, this is going to take a few minutes to get inland anyways. Again, if you're Marco Island, seek shelter. But I'm going to real quickly go back over Idalia again, because I know a lot of you guys are just tuning in. Idalia, again, is moving off to the north. It is going toward the Big Bend of Florida. That's where it's going to make landfall, but impacts are still expected up and down the west coast of Florida, and even inland, there will be some tropical storm, perhaps even hurricane impacts to some areas. Again, there are hurricane warnings in effect. There are tropical storm warnings, storm surge warnings, all that sort of stuff right now in effect across this area. Notice what Idalia looks like right now. It has intensified more over the last several hours. We are beginning to see a eye trying to form with this. We have more convection bursting here just to the west of the Key West area. And again, this is moving to the north right now at about 10 miles per hour. It is going to start speeding up a lot quicker, and it'll eventually go toward the Big Bend of Florida with, again, the eye of the storm will make landfall up there. But storm surge possible up and down the coastline from the Appalachia area, and as well as maybe even near Panama City, all the way back through Cape Coral and Key West. As of right now, hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings are in effect just north of Cape Coral. So this will include anywhere. Let me take up the satellite real quick. This will include anywhere near Sarasota and Englewood, back near Bradenton, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, Spring Hill, Dade City, Cedar Key, Horseshoe Beach, Perry, Cross City, as well as Carabel, all included right now in hurricane warnings. This also goes to Monticello, just to the east of Tallahassee as well. Not going to click that. But Tallahassee is also included in currently a hurricane warning. Again, if you're in a hurricane warning, that means hurricane conditions are expected to occur in the next 36 hours. That means hurricane force winds. If you're right along the coastline, that could mean storm surge. Flooding rains are also possible out of this. We also have tropical storm warnings in effect in those yellow boxes that go all up and down the east coast of Florida. It does not include anywhere south of Palm Bay, but just north of Port St. Lucie, that's where those tropical storm warnings are in effect. Goes through Jacksonville, Brunswick, Charleston, and as well as going through parts of southern Georgia are currently included in that. Panama City is not included in any watches or warnings right now. Could they? Maybe, but I don't think they will. I think they'll probably be okay over there. So, again, maybe up to a foot of storm surge on the immediate coastline, but that shouldn't impact any people too badly. And again, this is the current storm surge outlook for today and tomorrow. So tonight and tomorrow, this is when the storm surge will start to ramp up. It's really going to ramp up here going into the late afternoon, evening, and overnight hours, especially overnight tonight. Again, this will be the area that we're looking at for the peak of storm surge. 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is possible near the Osceola River back through Yankeetown. Again, that is a higher forecasted storm surge than what we had with Hurricane Ian that made landfall last year. So keep that in mind. Again, that is way higher than what we had last year in terms of storm surge forecasted, which was 8 to 12 feet last year back down near Cape Coral. So 10 to 15 feet is pretty serious. Tampa Bay looking at 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. Again, that means the peak storm surge will be between 4 and 7 feet. So it very well could get upwards of 7 feet. Along parts of the Panhandle, we'll be looking anywhere from 1 foot of storm surge near Mexico Beach, all the way back through 9 feet closer to the Osceola River region. Key West, we'll still be looking at some storm surge as well, between 1 to 2 feet. Notice if you're in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, back through Cape Canaveral along the Treasure Coast, you're not looking at any storm surge there, but Flagler and the Volusia County line, all the way back through the mouth of St. Mary's River, 1 to 3 feet is expected as we head into Wednesday. And then as well as Wednesday, we'll be looking at from the mouth of St. Mary's River back through South Sante River, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge will be possible there. And then from Surf City, North Carolina, back through South Sante River, 1 to 3 feet is possible there for storm surge, which again, I can't stress this enough. Storm surge is the most concerning feature of this entire thing. And also, I mentioned this earlier, but here's the spaghetti models. So again, this will be making landfall here in the next 24 hours in the Big Bend. It'll go through the South Carolina. It'll ride along the coast. So this will weaken back to a middle grade tropical storm over South Carolina. Eventually, this could take a boomerang turn back toward Florida, but there's a lot of uncertainty. The GFS model shows that, but there's a lot of uncertainty from here. So stay tuned. Again, a lot of computer models have been indicating that this will go more to the south and southwest. The reason why is because if this trough up here that's steering this to begin with goes faster than this hurricane, which will be a tropical storm by this point, it very well could go back to the west. But if it is slower and it stays with the hurricane, it will go out to sea like these other models are showing. But again, there's a lot of uncertainty there, so stay tuned. We'll keep you posted if anything does change with this system as it continues to move out that direction. So there could be a double shot for Florida, but again, even if it does impact Florida a second time, it would probably be a tropical storm. It could be a low-end hurricane, but I don't expect this to get to a full-blown, category 4 or 5 hurricane as it makes that turn back to the west. There should be enough wind shear, but again, a lot of uncertainty past really today. So stay tuned. Yeah, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're just tuning in. We'll keep you posted with the latest on Hurricane Idalia, and make sure to like the stream. It does help get this out to more people. Again, today's live stream is brought to you by Radar Omega. You can download it with the top link in the description below. I said that at the beginning of this live stream, but again, I was muted for the first 5 minutes. All right, let's go back to the tornado warning that is currently in effect for Marco Island. The rotation is about to be overhead in Marco Island. Let's check this out. So, I'm not seeing a lot of rotation here, but if there is to be a tornado, it would be right here near the just the southern side here of Marco Island. So that's where the rotation's at right now. Again, seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible if you're included in this tornado warning. If there is a tornado with this, it would probably be pretty weak, is my guess, because the velocities are also very weak, but still stay in your safe place. A tornado is a tornado. What about Naples? Naples is actually in the track of this tornado warned storm, but I don't think it'll get a new tornado warning. I'm not seeing a lot of rotation here, but if you're in Naples, I would stay weather aware because this could be going toward you. Later today in the Naples area, we'll be watching for tropical storm force winds. That'll start to ramp up though later this afternoon. So that won't be now. That'll be, you know, hours from now. Probably around 5 o'clock is when they'll really start to ramp up into tropical storm force winds. There'll also be storm surge with those strong southerly winds that'll be coming with, you know, 40 to 50 mile per hour winds just off the coast. Storm surge will push up into the Naples area around 2 to 4 feet. I'm pretty sure it's the current forecast. It might be slightly higher now. I'll just double check. But Naples will be around 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. And again, that means if you're right on the immediate coastline, that's a concern. Yeah, 2 to 4 feet right now. And again, we have the super blue moon tomorrow night. So again, that'll basically increase the storm surge in all essence because the tides will be 1 to 2 feet higher. So keep that in mind. Yeah, full moon, high tide is really the worst part about this. It's really horrible timing. I really can't stress that enough. It's horrible timing when this is happening. If this happened, you know, when there wasn't a full moon, the tides would be a couple feet at least lower. And this is a super blue moon. The super blue moon only happens once every, like, 14 years or something like that. It doesn't happen very often. So again, the storm surge is just the worst part about this entire thing. It's awful, unfortunately. This will not affect Ohio, no. Blue Moon Hurricane. I mean, it could be nicknamed like that. All right, let's check out and see if there's any new details here. Yeah, again, I'm not seeing a whole lot of rotation here. I'm pretty sure it's weakened out. Still stay in your safe place just in case. I've been looking at a couple of different radars here, and I'm not seeing really anything in particular in terms of strong rotation. It is much weaker than before, but stay in your safe place just in case. There could be a water spout with this. It's entirely possible, which could have made landfall here near Marco Island. So just stay in your safe place. The tornado warning expires in 7 minutes. And again, when I talk about a safe place, that means an interior room of your home or building, away from windows, lowest floor possible. If you don't have a room without windows, then a closet or a bathroom are usually the best places to go. The tornado risk will really ramp up later today. Again, there's not a tornado watch yet, but we are starting to see some of these outer bands from Idalia that are moving inland. So you'll notice this is one of the outer bands. We have another outer band near Cape Coral. These will start to produce more of a tornado risk later today. So when this hurricane is basically in a direct parallel direction here with Cape Coral, that's when the tornado risk will start to increase. So later this afternoon, basically, when these outer bands go more south to north. Right now, they're going a little bit more south-southeast to north-northwest. Not the most prime position for tornadoes. So this will really start to ramp up later today when we start to get more of a southerly to northerly motion, and eventually a southwesterly to northeasterly direction. That'll also help as well. Again, this is what Idalia looks like on the reflectivity. So notice this is right now where the eye is. It's just off to the west of Key West. It's parallel lat. So the tornado risk could start to increase in Key West over the next few hours. There's a chance of that, but again, there will be more shear available later today for a tornado risk to be greater later today. So that'll be primarily after 5 o'clock, in my opinion, for that greatest tornado risk. That's the eye on the reflectivity. It's a little bit on the left side of this, the direct middle line here, which again, the cone of uncertainty is very important here because the eye will make landfall anywhere in this area. So if you're in the cone of uncertainty, that's where the eye is going to make landfall between Cedar Key and Perry. It can make landfall on the very far western side, the eastern side, the middle. Again, anywhere in this area, that's where the eye will make landfall. That's where the most impacted areas will be in terms of catastrophic impacts, including the storm surge up to 15 feet. Again, that is a really high number, up to 15 feet of storm surge. In addition to that, hurricane force winds, perhaps as high as 150 mile per hour wind gusts once this makes landfall. Right now, the National Hurricane Center has this forecasted to reach 155 mile per hour wind gusts once this makes landfall in the Big Bend of Florida. So again, it's extremely concerning if you're right along the west coast here of Florida, back up near the Big Bend. Even though Tampa's not in this cone of uncertainty, storm surge will push inland from the strong winds, and that will obviously come upwards of 4 to 7 feet of storm surge. So big concern with that as well. Again, storm surge, I can't stress this enough, it is the worst part of hurricanes. And also, we are currently in a super blue moon that's going to be happening tomorrow. So really just horrible timing. And the super blue moon, again, if you're not familiar with it, again, it basically will rise the tides by 1 to 2 feet. So also, actually, I can show you a few more graphics. Tornado warning actually has been canceled, so we can take this off. Tornado warning has now been canceled. I was about to say the rotation really weakened on that. Let's go back to the tropical storm impacts here. Let's go to the wind probability. Here are your probabilities of seeing hurricane force winds. So right now, the better chance of that will be west of Daytona Beach and Palm Coast. It's primarily going to be over here near Gainesville, Live Oak, and Tallahassee. This region here near Cedar Key. The greatest chance will be just to the northwest of Cedar Key, but Cedar Key, it's pretty likely that you'll see it as well. When you see these darker colors here, that's going to represent a higher probability. I'm not entirely sure what this percentage is, but I believe it's about 80%, and then it starts going down from there. So like 70, 60%, 50%, 40, 30, 20, 10, probably like 5 or something like that. So it's about that. So that's your chance of seeing hurricane force winds, and the highest chance will again be near Cedar Key. So just north of Cedar Key near Horseshoe Beach, that's almost 100% chance that you'll see hurricane force winds there. And obviously storm surge, which again, storm surge is the worst part about this. Gainesville definitely has a chance of it. It's around 20% right now, but that is subject to change. Lake City is around 40, 50%, and Live Oak as well is up there. Madison, Perry, Jasper all have that chance, and as well as Tallahassee, you have about a 10 to 20% chance of seeing hurricane force winds. And in terms of tropical storm force winds, go to tropical storm force winds here. Tropical storm force winds, it's basically 100% chance if you're anywhere in this area. So that includes Gainesville, Jacksonville, or just west of Jacksonville, as well as Brunswick. All these areas that are in this very dark shaded area here, you're pretty much guaranteed to see tropical storm force winds in the next 24 to 36 hours. So anywhere that I just highlighted here, but even in Daytona Beach, Orlando, Tampa, I would still expect tropical storm force winds at the bare minimum here. I think. Yeah. That's what we're looking at in terms of the tropical storm force winds, which again would be 39 miles per hour or greater. That's not necessarily enough to like knock out power, but it definitely is within range to knock out power if some trees fall down near Gainesville or Jacksonville. But 39 mile per hour winds and greater, that's a pretty large range. It could very well go higher than that. Let's go to the 60 mile per hour. This is 55 miles per hour and greater. So in terms of seeing 55 mile per hour or greater winds, which can definitely knock over trees, by the way, that would include anywhere in this shaded region. Primarily going to be the highest chance would be again on the coastline, but we very well could see that outside of that too. This entire area here, we'll be watching for that threat of wind speeds going as high as 55 plus miles per hour, which has a better chance of knocking out power. Power outages are pretty likely, by the way, if you're anywhere in this highlighted area that I just highlighted. So that would be east of Tallahassee near Gainesville. Make sure you have flashlights on hand. Make sure you have phones charged up beforehand and all that sort of stuff, because again, this will be a dangerous storm. Once it makes landfall, there will be power outages here near the coastline and even inland near Live Oak and Lake City. I've heard that Lake City has a lot of mobile homes. Mobile homes are not safe during this type of storm. I would highly recommend that you evacuate if you're in a mobile home, especially even inland, because again, even like a severe storm with 60 mile per hour winds can damage a mobile home substantially. You can only imagine what this will do with hurricane force winds potentially in that area. So please make sure if you're in a mobile home right in that area that's going to be expecting hurricane force winds, you should probably evacuate. Again, if you're on the immediate coastline near Cedar Key or Horseshoe Beach, that's where storm surge is likely. Again, if you're on Cedar Key, it's really worst case scenario, obviously, but this is a very small island here. And some of you may have vacationed there. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a vacationing place too, but Cedar Key is one way in and out. This bridge is expected to be gone tomorrow. It's expected to be gone from the storm surge, unless this goes way further to the west, which is probably not going to happen. But Cedar Key is a really dangerous place to be. Up to 15 feet of storm surge is possible in Cedar Key. You should be leaving if you are on Cedar Key and evacuating. I'm pretty sure mandatory evacuations have been issued here in Cedar Key. So you're definitely going to want to make sure, again, if those have been issued, definitely evacuate, because it's really way too dangerous to be there. But up to 15 feet of storm surge is possible there in Cedar Key, Horseshoe Beach, Swanee, Jenna, and even back up here closer to the Keaton Beach and Fish Creek. All those areas right now have that chance there for up to 15 feet of storm surge. So again, it's very concerning. Very well could be a catastrophic event there along the coastline as Hurricane Idalia attempts rapid intensification this afternoon, which again, that's expected. All right, so rapid intensification is expected later today, which means this will pretty much go from a Category 1 to a Category 3 hurricane very, very quickly. It'll go like within, 24 hours or so. It's basically going to go from about a Category 1 to a Category 3. There's a chance upon landfall this gets to a Category 4. It's still on the lower side of things, but it's entirely possible. The National Hurricane Center's forecast has this going up to 125 mile per hour winds, which is the pretty much highest point that you can get on a Category 3 hurricane. So if it went any higher to about 130, 135, that's a Category 4 hurricane. And Franklin out here is a Category 4 hurricane with a pretty defined eye still. So this might be what it looks like tomorrow morning. I'm not trying to scare you, but that's, again, the nature of what this is. And I honestly, I've said this the other day, I hate hurricanes. I hate them with, like, all passion. They're horrible. They do so much destruction, and this is going to be another situation where it's going to be happening here along the west coast of Florida, especially in the Big Bend. But again, some areas will be impacted way more than others. But the cone of uncertainty is just so large still, which, I mean, right now in terms of mileage, this is it's about 100 miles wide in terms of diameter. So again, the eye could make anywhere from a landfall anywhere just south of Tallahassee back through Cedar Key, which again is still pretty large. So if it makes landfall, let's just say in Cedar Key, we'll be looking at higher wind speeds in this region here in terms of hurricane force winds for sure near Gainesville. Storm surge would even be a bit higher for Tampa than it currently is. But if it makes landfall further over here to the west, storm surge would not be nearly as significant in Tampa Bay, but there will still be storm surge. But back over near Tallahassee, the storm surge would be way worse over near Cedar Key in these areas, which would be way worse for even Apalachicola. Those areas will also be in the track of that. So that's what we're looking at again in terms of those impacts. And also, if we go back over to the storm surge forecast, again, this is the update from the National Hurricane Center. Not too long ago, this was back literally about an hour ago. They updated the forecast, so now it's up to 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is forecasted from the Osceola River all the way back through Yankeetown. So, unfortunately, again, storm surge, it's going to be quite significant, and it's really life-threatening. So, if you are along the coastline here and you see your area within storm surge, and you're on the beach, you're probably going to want to evacuate. Again, the National Hurricane Center, if you go to their website, they have an entire map that'll show you the different storm surge that you could see in your area. And if you should evacuate and whatnot, it'll basically show you that. So if you're seeing any more than, 1 foot of storm, like if the water is going to be even a foot above ground, it's probably too dangerous to stay there. So I highly recommend, again, that you should probably evacuate if you're on those immediate coastlines in the risk of storm surge. Thank you, Key, by the way, for the super chat earlier. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Kathleen, for becoming a minimum velocity member. Welcome to the Velocities. Thank you very much. I think we have a couple questions here. Let me get to them real quick. Red Springs, North Carolina. If you're in North Carolina, unless you're on the if you're on the coastline, storm surge will be a bit more of a concern with high winds. Red Springs will be more of a flooding threat, though. So if you're in that area, like, again, near like inland of North Carolina or South Carolina, we're talking way more about the threat for heavy rainfall. So we could very well see rainfall upwards of 5 to 10 inches of rain in some areas. It's a bit more concerning up there. So if you're in Orlando's a bit of an interesting area here because it's inland, right? But we're not looking at huge impacts, I'd say, for Orlando. We'll be looking at tropical storm force winds. That's likely. There will be some showers and storms for sure. So if you're going to the theme parks or whatever today or tomorrow, there will be some showers and storms. There's also going to be an increasing tornado risk later today if you're in the Orlando area. So if you're in Orlando or Kissimmee, that'll be later today. So probably after 5 o'clock is when that tornado risk will start to increase. A tornado watch is likely sometime later today. I'm not sure when they'll issue it, but my guess is it probably will be sometime just after 4 o'clock is when the tornado watch will be out. And we'll be looking at a few tornadoes likely today across Florida. And there's also going to be a chance for a strong, perhaps violent tornado. That has been the wording that we've been hearing. So there's a potential for a strong/violent tornado if one does end up developing. So again, have a tornado action plan in place as well, just in case if you're across anywhere in Florida. The tornado risk is across this entire region. I'll go and pull it up for you. This is your current tornado risk. So again, the highest risk right now is in that slight risk around Tampa, and as well as back through Gainesville for today and tonight. Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, Orlando, Palm Bay, Port St. Lucie, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Cape Coral, Key West, and Northport, all included right now in a marginal risk, which does mean there's a low chance, but it still does exist. It's a medium chance if you're in Gainesville and Tampa. Which usually my wording with these risks is that when there's a marginal risk, it's a very low chance for a tornado. If there's a slight risk, it's a low chance. But in this case, hurricanes produce a bit more of a tornado risk, and it's a little bit more certain that it'll occur. So I'm using more of a term of medium for the slight risk. So that's how I at least term and phrase it. And then as we go into tomorrow, the tornado risk does not end tonight. Unfortunately, there will be another chance tomorrow morning and the afternoon, and perhaps even into the evening hours. There's a pretty large slight risk of severe weather, and this is all mainly for the tornado risk. This will extend from Jacksonville and Wilmington, North Carolina, back through parts of Orlando and Jacksonville. That is where we'll be looking at for the threat of also a few tornadoes. A friendly reminder, if you're just tuning in, make sure to subscribe to our channel. We'll keep you posted with the latest on Hurricane Idalia. Make sure to like the stream. It does help get this out to more people. And also, today's live stream, again, is brought to you by Radar Omega. It is a fantastic weather app that you can get on your iPhone or Android devices. To download it, it's the top link in the description below. It's $8.99, but it's so worth it. It gives you all the insights, including computer models, as well as all sorts of outlooks. It's basically an all-in-one weather app for you. So make sure to check it out. Again, top link in the description below to download it, Radar Omega. That's what we've been using, by the way. We're using everything. And they also have buoy data, by the way. This is one of the buoy data tags. I'm not sure if we'll get photos from that one. Some of these do have photos. So as this moves off to the north and northeast, we should be able to get some photos. I'm going to see if that ends up pulling up the photos. But yeah, that's another cool feature with this. And here's the reflectivity on Hurricane Idalia, by the way. You can see the eye of it right now. It's located right here. It's pretty far west still of Key West, but we are seeing these outer bands right now going through Key West, and that's going to, again, increase that tornado risk as we go later today. Yeah, we're starting to see some high winds. Could be, again, upwards of tropical storm force winds. Let me check and see if we have any rotation on the coastline real quick. Starting to see a little bit more rotation down here, which, as these move to the north and east, we could get a new tornado warning closer to Everglades City or Marco Island again, because these storms are definitely rotating, possibly a water spout there, another little rotation there as well. That'll be moving north-northwest, so Marco Island, and basically between Marco Island and Everglades will be the next area of concern in terms of the tornado risk. Those are definitely rotating. The live radar feed. Let me go back to the high-res reflectivity. Do I not? Oh, I don't have a radar on, that's why. Yeah, so there's a little bit of rotation here. That'll be moving off to the north. We could get another tornado warning down the road. So stay tuned on that one. And definitely have to make sure you have multiple ways to receive alerts, because, again, tornado warnings will be possible throughout the day today. Have a tornado action plan in place as well, just in case you are in a tornado warning. So as this hurricane moves inland tomorrow morning, this will make landfall again around 8 to 10 in the morning in the Big Bend of Florida. Right now it's forecasted to become a strong Category 3 hurricane. It could become a Category 4 as well, a low end if it ends up getting there. Once this makes landfall, it will begin to weaken quickly, but we're still going to see hurricane impacts inland quite a bit. So that'll go all the way back through even southern Georgia. There are currently hurricane warnings in effect, even back into parts of southern Georgia. So, again, hurricane force winds are possible there as this moves off to the north and northeast. But notice as we go closer to tomorrow night, so at 8 o'clock Wednesday night, we are going to be looking at the potential for this just to go down to a tropical storm at that point. Upwards around 65 mile per hour sustained winds, wind gusts up to 75 as it approaches Savannah, Georgia. So as it moves further inland, this will weaken over time, but it's definitely going to be very intense for the first few hours of landfall. But I can't stress this enough. Please do not just focus on the cone, because there will be impacts, hurricane impacts and tropical storm impacts outside of this cone. That includes a very large area. Again, if you're under a tropical storm warning or a hurricane warning, take them seriously. Even if you're not in the cone, you might be in this tropical storm warning down near Palm Bay, for example, and you might be thinking, oh, we're not going to see anything. Well, you will at least see some tropical storm force winds. It's not going to probably be that bad down near Palm Bay. There will be a few tornadoes as well across central Florida, so Palm Bay could be in that risk as well. But if you're in like a hurricane warning, for example, and you're Northport, but you're nowhere near the cone of uncertainty, that does not mean you go party and say, oh, we don't have any threat. There will be storm surge along the coastline. Cannot stress that enough. Around 2 to 4 feet of storm surge at least, which, again, is still significant, and it will cause flooding on the immediate coastline and potentially inland a little bit, and as well as the potential for heavy rainfall. There's a tornado risk, all that sort of stuff. Be weather aware for sure over the next 24 to 36 hours, because, again, it will be very, very busy as we go into tonight and as well as into tomorrow morning. It's going to be very, very active. All right, there's no new mesoscale discussions, by the way, as of right now. Just a heads up, which basically means I'm just waiting to see if we have any interest on a tornado watch, basically, from the Storm Prediction Center and whatnot. So we haven't had anything like that yet. But tornado watch probably won't be issued until later today, is my guess. I'm watching a live cam from Key West, and people are walking like nothing's happening. Well, Key West is a little bit different. There will be storm surge in Key West. There are currently tropical storm watches down there. There will be storm surge down here, and here's a live radar feed. So again, we're definitely going to see some storm surge, but it depends on where you are in Key West. I mean, if you're over here, the concern is lesser. There will probably at least be some storm surge, but it probably won't be too crazy. Back over near Key West, for example, though, the storm surge potential is greater. So, and as well as the tornado risk, but it's only about 1 to 2 feet. So it's not like 15 feet of storm surge where everything will be flooded over. But it's still really not that good to walk on a beach unless you're like out of the risk of the storm surge, which would be, again, probably back over here, basically south of Fort Lauderdale. It would be like this region here. So very far northern part of Key West. Risk in the eastern panhandle. I'm not sure exactly what location we're talking about, but if you're like Tallahassee, there is a chance for tropical storm or hurricane force winds depending on where this ends up going. Let me pop the computer models here. Do that real quick. Let's go to this model. We'll do Idalia. All right, here's the look at what will happen over the next several hours on the future radar. So this is going closer to the timestamps at the top of your screen, but this is by 5 p.m. Notice where Idalia is. The HWRF model has been hinting at a more westerly track. It's been doing that a lot so far. A lot of computer models have, but there's still a chance that this goes a little bit more out over here to the east, up this direction, or not up that direction, but up this direction on the right side of the cone of uncertainty. But some outer bands will be impacting areas like Northport, Cape Coral, and Tampa as we go throughout the afternoon. This is by 11 o'clock tonight, so notice, again, pretty intense. By around 2 in the morning, this continues to move off to the north and northeast. By 8 tomorrow morning, the eye wall will start to get close to the coastline. Again, this will likely be a Category 3. It could get to a low-end Category 4. This is showing like a Category 5. I don't think it gets there. There's just not enough time, but rapid intensification could at least get this to a Category 3, perhaps a low-end Category 4. We have some of these outer bands as well that'll be impacting the coastline. That will be a concern for the tornado risk, and as well as damaging winds. And eventually, as we go closer to 11 in the morning, again, this will make landfall sometime between 8 to 11 tomorrow, and probably gonna be around 8 to 10. And this will be moving inland. Again, if it makes landfall here, let's just say just south of Tallahassee, hurricane force winds are expected in Tallahassee. But if it makes landfall, let's say back over in Cedar Key, then we'd be looking at hurricane force winds more likely near Gainesville. So again, things will change a little bit in terms of that regard. Yeah, if it makes landfall, like, let's say in between the two, it goes right up this line, then Live Oak and Lake City would be probably looking at hurricane force winds as it moves inland. And then this is going later into the day, so this will be by 8 o'clock tomorrow. Again, we'll have that eye over here, but again, it's going to become more disorganized. Flooding, rainfall will become much more of a concern as we go into the late evening and overnight hours tomorrow, and then eventually going into the morning hours on Thursday. This will continue to dump rain across the Carolinas. So that's the current track on the HWRF model. This is the HMON model. So just some different computer models that we can look at. This one is going to show way more of a left track, and it starts to curve back in. So this shows it makes landfall near Live Oak. Again, that's why there's a large cone of uncertainty, because this very well could make landfall anywhere in this area. I still think it'll probably make landfall just off to the northwest of Cedar Key, probably in this area here, so maybe near Horseshoe Beach. It's more likely than not, in my opinion, that'll happen. But there is still a chance it goes as far west as maybe closer to Tallahassee. So definitely keep that in mind. And this is the NAM 3K model, which I personally don't like because it just shows the intensity being way too crazy. It usually overestimates these things like by a lot, but we'll at least see what it shows in terms of where the eye goes. The NAM 3K model actually shows a way further west landfall, which I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think landfall will happen this far to the west. It's still possible, but I would still say it's a low chance, and you can see it goes over Tallahassee, but just another computer model. Here's the RAP model. This one's usually pretty good. This one's showing as well that same left track here. So this is basically accounting for that ridge that's back over in the Bahamas to be stronger than what it was yesterday. And then the GFS model is going to show us something probably as well. The GFS model is the one that curves us back to Florida long term. Just going to do the full loop. So again, it shows landfall on the very far left side there. And then it goes back out to sea. And then the GFS brings us, I'm pretty sure, right back to Florida. Maybe it doesn't. Or maybe it does. Yes, it does. All right. So yeah, it kind of sits and it moves back to the west. But yeah, I don't think the GFS model is really... I don't think we're going to see this curve right back to Florida. If it does, it wouldn't be a hurricane by then. So that's the GFS model. Here's the HRR model. So again, we're just going through a bunch of these different ones. But a lot of the computer models, again, are really hugging the left side of this line. There haven't been a whole lot that have been showing a Cedar Key landfall. The European model is one of them that has been very consistent on a Cedar Key landfall, which is a pretty accurate computer model. This one shows a landfall near Apalachicola. So, yeah, I think it'll probably make landfall a little bit further to the east, but we'll have to wait and see. That's why this cone of uncertainty is so large. Again, it could make landfall anywhere between Cedar Key and basically just south of Tallahassee. And rapid intensification, again, is expected over the next 24 hours. This will go from a Category 1 to a Category 3. It very well could get upwards of a Category 4 as well as it moves towards Cedar Key, which is definitely entirely possible at this point, that this gets to that point. So, definitely make sure that you are staying weather aware and being prepared for this hurricane as it continues to move to the north. All right. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to leave those in the chat. And again, if you're just tuning in, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll keep you posted with the latest on Hurricane Idalia as it does approach Florida. Again, the landfall expected ETA is 8 to 10 in the morning tomorrow, but tropical storm impacts will be felt, especially along the west coast, as early as 4 to 5 o'clock this afternoon. Storm surge will ramp up later tonight as well, depending on where you are. Again, it'll be higher in some areas. And this is the current storm surge forecast. Again, storm surge is the worst part of hurricanes. Currently, the highest storm surge is forecasted to be between the Osceola River and Yankeetown. 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is expected there. And then further down to the south near Tampa Bay, 4 to 7 feet is possible there. And then back further to the south near the Charlotte Harbor, and as well as back even down near the East Cape Sable, all those areas are looking at least between 1 to 4 feet of storm surge in those areas. And the storm surge is the worst part of hurricanes, so make sure you're prepared for storm surge. Evacuate, again, if you're on the immediate coastline, or if you're in one of those prone areas for storm surge, you should be evacuating, because again, we'll be looking at very significant storm surge out of this. 10 to 15 feet, again, it's a higher forecast than Ian even was for storm surge. So that's really concerning at this point. But one of the things, again, with the storm surge in Tampa Bay is that, pull up this, we'll take this back to the radar. But one of the things with Tampa Bay is, again, while these strong southerly and southwesterly winds going into tomorrow morning and even during the overnight hours, this will pull tons of water into the bay and it will disperse into these different bays. That's the problem. All this water basically gets sucked up into Tampa Bay, and what ends up happening is it gets stuck there and it just sits there for, a day or two. That's why we have such a concern here, especially with these like little inlets as well near like Bradenton, for example. That's why storm surge is a very big concern here for Tampa Bay. If this were to make landfall near like Spring Hill, that would be catastrophic for Tampa Bay. Luckily, the forecast right now is that it will not make landfall near Spring Hill, but if it did, I'm just saying, like, it would be way worse because we'd have very high and strong southerly winds that would pull all this into the Tampa Bay area, which in all essence would cause, again, probably 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. But in this case, we're currently looking at 4 to 7 feet of storm surge here in Tampa Bay, and this is all just going to disperse in here. There's really no exit here for this just to go back out to sea. So it's really concerning in terms of storm surge on the immediate areas near Tampa Bay. Again, Tampa Bay Airport is closed through Wednesday, which is rightfully so, with how bad this will be. So that's what we're looking at there. Again, here's what Idalia looks like on the reflectivity. It's located right here back west of Key West, moving off to the north. It's a little bit west of the line, but it's pretty much on line for where it has been. So, and this is going to probably go north for a little while. It's going to probably start to turn a little bit to the north-northeast as it gets closer to land. If it lands in Cedar Key, what can Ocala expect? Ocala would probably see upwards of hurricane force winds if it did make landfall near Cedar Key, which is hence why you have hurricane warning in effect as well. So, one of the bigger things, though, with this entire system is that if you're in a hurricane warning, you definitely want to make sure that you are, again, prepared for power outages, especially if you're inland, because there will be high winds. Hurricane force winds are like a severe thunderstorm, and severe storms quite often will produce power outages, especially with damaging winds. So, damaging winds upwards of 75, 85, even maybe 90 miles per hour inland is not out of the question, including areas like the Villages, Bushnell, as well as Ocala, Gainesville, Lake City even, Live Oak, Jasper, Madison, Cross City, Perry, Chiefland, Horseshoe Beach, obviously, and Cedar Key. All those areas have that chance for hurricane force winds, which again could knock out power for potentially days in some instances. It could be weeks near the coastline. So again, storm surge is expected to be really, really rampant. And right now in Cedar Key, again, if you are in Cedar Key, I highly recommend you leaving. Again, right now, there's only one road in and out of Cedar Key, and it's probably going to be flooded over from storm surge. Up to 15 feet of storm surge is expected in Cedar Key. So, again, I wouldn't risk staying in Cedar Key if I were you. It's way too dangerous. If you're anywhere like Horseshoe Beach, too, or anywhere along the coast, with that 10 to 15 foot storm surge forecast, you should honestly evacuate. It's just way too risky. Let's real quickly go back down to these storms near Naples. One of these was rotating offshore. Yeah, we still have some rotation offshore with this storm. It'll be going toward the West Dismal Key and possibly going toward Grocery Place in Marco Island. Again, there is going to be a tornado risk with this as it approaches land. There was a tornado warning for Marco Island not too long ago, so this could also go under a tornado warning as well. So, see what happens. All right, let's go back to the satellite imagery. There we go. St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, again, is pretty much like Tampa. Storm surge up to 4 to 7 feet is expected. Flooding rains are possible. The rainfall forecast, by the way, it's up there for this. Even for like Tampa Bay, this is the estimate from the Weather Prediction Center. Right now, forecasted to get upwards of 4 to 5 inches of rain near Tampa. Could go as high as 6 to 7 inches as well. So we're really in the range of 4 to 8 inches of rain is expected if you're near Tampa and Sarasota. Gainesville even could get upwards of 4 to 6 inches. Even closer to Cedar Key, we could be talking about upwards of 10 inches of rain to go along with the substantial storm surge that's expected there. So that's the current concern. But again, the current forecast for storm surge, which again is the larger concern if you're right along the coastline, is upwards of, again, 4 to 7 feet of storm surge in Tampa Bay. Again, it could be a little bit higher if this takes more of an easterly track. If it makes landfall near Yankeetown, for example, storm surge will be way higher for Tampa Bay. It could go upwards of 10 feet instead of 7 feet. But if it makes more of a landfall closer to the Osceola River, this could even be lower, so possibly like 3 to 6 feet. But even then, you should still be making sure if you're along that immediate coastline and in the risk of storm surge that you are evacuating, because again, it's going to be way too dangerous to stay. It's way too risky to begin with. But again, this is the area that we're looking at for 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. It's a big upgrade from earlier. Again, earlier today, this was 8 to 12 feet. So now it's up to 10 to 15 feet for a maximum peak storm surge. And we have the blue supermoon to go along with everything, which means the tides will be 1 to 2 feet higher. And even back down here, I mean, we're still looking at storm surge all the way down through the Florida Keys. It's crazy. And along the East Coast as well, as we go into Wednesday, storm surge upwards of 4 feet will be possible along the East Coast of Florida, back through parts of North Carolina. Pretty concerning. And here's the spaghetti models in terms of where this will go later on. So again, it could turn back toward Florida as we go into next week, but chances of that again are still low, and even if it does, it'll probably weaken out. This is the most recent model runs here. And yeah, I think that's it. Actually, let's go to the wind gusts. I haven't done this in a while. Here's the wind gusts that are currently forecasted as we go into tonight and tomorrow. So again, hurricane force winds will start to arrive to Cape Coral, Sarasota, and Tampa right around about 5, 6 o'clock. So they'll start to ramp up as we go later into today. And in terms of tropical storm force winds, hurricane force winds will be possible as we go into the overnight hours. Near Tampa, we could get winds as high as 60, 70, maybe 80 miles per hour. Most of Florida by this point will have tropical storm force winds, maybe wind gusts. By this point, so winds will start to pick up by then, and eventually as we go closer to 7 in the morning, again, this model in particular is making a bit more of a landfall closer to Tampa, but don't forget this could go way further to the east towards Cedar Key, which they are two completely different places in terms of landfall. Eventually by 8 in the morning, again, notice how high the winds get, so wherever this eye makes landfall, we'll be seeing the highest wind gusts on the east side and really anywhere around it, but really on the east side, that's where the peak of those wind gusts will be. So Tallahassee, if this made landfall up there, the wind gusts could get upwards of 100 to 110 miles per hour. But if it makes landfall over near Cedar Key and it goes toward Gainesville, then in that case, we're talking about wind gusts as high as 100 miles per hour as well. I mean, it's pretty much the same as Tallahassee. So that'll continue to move up to the north and northeast. But again, we have 2 different areas that we're watching, or really 3 for location of landfall. One would be closer to Tallahassee. One would be near Perry, or just southeast of Perry, near Horseshoe Beach, and as well as Cedar Key. All 3 of which would impact areas differently. Hurricane force winds only go out so far, so it's a bit more a small radius. But eventually, as we go into the afternoon tomorrow, we'll be watching for winds still above tropical storm force winds across Florida, and it'll start to die down later in the day. But winds could peak around 50 in Daytona Beach. Jacksonville, probably going to peak closer to around 50 as well, possibly up to 60 if it gets closer to you. So yeah, there's still some uncertainty on the landfall location, but that would be what we're looking at there. Let's go back to here. All right. This is similar to Ian in ways, but it's not really that similar. So comparing Ian to Idalia, Ian was down here in the Northern Caribbean Sea. So there was a Category 3 in the Northern Caribbean Sea. It had rapid intensification well before it got to the Gulf of Mexico. Once it went into the Gulf of Mexico, into the Southeast Gulf, this became a Category 4 hurricane with more rapid intensification. Then it made landfall near Cape Coral. So that's what happened, as we went into the landfall day. It was up to a Category 4 hurricane in the Southeast Gulf of Mexico. Another big comparison point. Ian was going at 9 miles per hour upon landfall. This is going to be going 17 miles per hour upon landfall. So there it's about double the speed. That means the flooding rain potential will be lower for those inland, but it's still going to exist in some areas because, again, 4 to 10 inches of rain is still a lot, but it won't be upwards of 20 inches because 20 inches is just crazy. We saw that last year with Ian. So that's kind of the comparison there. Ian, again, had way more time to develop. Idalia is a Category 1 in the Gulf. It was a Category 3 over here. Rapid intensification will still likely occur and get this to a Category 3 as it gets closer to the Big Bend. But even a Category 4, low-end Category 4 may still be possible as well. Do I not see it going through Jacksonville? It could go through Jacksonville, but the eye will probably still stay just off to your north. So if it takes the most easterly track possible right now, it would likely go in this sort of direction. It could just stay north of Jacksonville. If that happens, then you would be likely at least looking at hurricane force winds near Jacksonville. But again, there's still too much uncertainty there in terms of where this will exactly make landfall. Because if it goes this way, you'll be looking at tropical storm force winds. But if it goes more on an easterly track, it'll be a higher chance in terms of the winds being higher. By the way, thank you, Christine, for the 149 super chat. Thank you, Pink King, as well, earlier for the $2 super chat. Appreciate the generosity. Thank you. The current sustained winds on Idalia are 85 miles per hour. But the details are right here. I'll keep them up for a second. Just gotta pour some water. We have some more water sound effects. No problem, Justin. Yeah, again, if you're back over like Jacksonville, for example, I'm still expecting mainly tropical storm force impacts, and anywhere really along the East Coast there, it's more of a tropical storm impact area in my eyes. But it could get to hurricane force winds. It would just have to take the very furthest east track, which is, again, a bit more unlikely. The National Hurricane Center could always upgrade those to hurricane warnings if needed, but right now there's not enough certainty there. I mean, right now at Idalia, it's still trying to form here. And intensify right now in parts of the Southeast Gulf of Mexico. It's tried to rapidly intensify a few times now. I feel like it's about to crack through the code at some point in the next little while, but the eye right now is like right here. It's kind of on the left side here where the line is in the middle, which again, the line in the middle, kind of ignore it. That's like the highest probability where it'll make landfall, but it could still make landfall even inside the cone of uncertainty further west or east. So keep that in mind. We're looking at right now. Hey, thanks, Darren. I appreciate it. Thank you for your service. In Orlando and Kissimmee, anywhere in the Orlando-Kissimmee area, the main concern today is tornadoes. But the threat, again, is it's medium today for tornadoes. There will probably at least be a few across Central Florida. Again, it's across a pretty large area today for that tornado risk. Let me go to the severe weather risk here. Severe weather. But here is the overall look at the severe weather threat today. So right now we're looking at a slight risk of severe weather across parts of western Florida. Back through Gainesville, again, that's where our highest tornado probability is today. That will really increase after 3 to 4 o'clock today. And as we go into later tonight, the tornado risk will start to increase in that green shaded area. But the main concern right now is a few tornadoes for those inland. Tropical storm force winds will be possible later today. That'll be probably after midnight for Orlando and Kissimmee. But I'm not expecting anything too far beyond that. I don't expect hurricane force winds in Orlando. And rainfall totals could get upwards of 2 to 4 inches in that area as well. But that slight risk for tornadoes today and tonight and overnight. And then going into Wednesday morning and afternoon, the tornado risk does continue. It increases across parts of eastern and northeast Florida, and as well as back through parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Why aren't the wind probabilities much higher? Are you talking about wind probabilities for like the eye right now in terms of the current intensity? it's not that high right now because, or it's not like as high as it could go because one, there's not enough certainty that this gets to a, category 4, for example, like 135 miles per hour or whatever. But back down here, for example, right now it's at 85 miles per hour. It will likely undergo rapid intensification in the next several hours, and once that happens, this will really quickly strengthen, and eventually, as it makes landfall, probably around a category 3, low-end category 4. But there's just not enough time for this to get any higher than that, in my opinion. It's just it's cut short on time. If this was going as slow as Ian was at 9 miles per hour, this very well could get to a category, like strong category 4, but there's just not enough time. Thank you, Big, for the 199. I have to drive from South Carolina to Miami Thursday night? Question mark? I don't know. Do you have to drive? No. If you're going from South Carolina to Miami Thursday night, I don't know what route you'd be taking, but you should be okay. Yeah, if you're taking like I-95, you should be fine. Thank you, Pilgrim, for the $2 super chat. I'm in Citrus Park. Oops, I did not mean to zoom out. Storm Surge 7.5 from the bay. I don't know what that's exactly saying. Figure out where Citrus Park is first. Here's Citrus Park. Storm Surge, it would have to be on the immediate coastline, so if you're in Citrus Park, you're not going to probably see the Storm Surge. I mean, you could, but you would have to be like down here to the south to see that Storm Surge. The National Hurricane Center has a map on their website that you can look at for Storm Surge, so you can look at that on their website. It'll give you an idea of the Storm Surge here across parts of like the bay. But really, the Storm Surge risk will be right along the coastline, and as well as any of these rivers water could go up through. That's where the greatest Storm Surge threat will be. But if you're back up near Citrus Park, you should be fine. Because that's a bit more inland. But one thing to point out with this is that the Hurricane Idalia right now is becoming more symmetric, which is an indicator of intensification. So we are starting to see that more as it's moving off to the north. And that will obviously indicate some rapid intensification starting to begin at least. Because again, this will probably go to a Category 2 hurricane by this afternoon at some point. So be prepared, obviously. Make sure you have multiple ways to receive alerts. And if you're along the immediate coastline, storm surge as high as 15 feet as possible. Depending on where you are at, it might be way lower, it could be way higher. It just depends on where you're at. If you're on the Big Bend of Florida, it could be upwards of 15 feet. Further down to the south of Tampa Bay, the peak I think will be up to 6 feet, 7 feet. If you're in Tampa Bay, up to 7 feet of storm surge as possible. So that's what we're looking at right now. Thank you, Jenny, for the $4.99 super chat, by the way. Appreciate it. Thank you. But it is becoming a bit more symmetric, which will indicate intensification. Also, the next National Hurricane Center update will be at 2 o'clock. So that's the next update. Radar Omega does automatically update the radar and stuff like that. This all automatically updates, including the satellite imagery as well. Again, today's live stream is brought to you by Radar Omega. We are currently using Radar Omega live here on the stream. If you want to download Radar Omega for yourself, you can get it on iOS and Android. It's the top link in the description below. It's a fantastic weather app. It has computer models, radar, everything that you need. It's an all-in-one weather app. It's $8.99 on iOS and Android. Highly recommend it. It's worth the money. Check it out. Top link in the description below. I've been using it literally every live stream in the past like month. It's awesome. Thank you, Amy, by the way, as well for the $4.99. I appreciate that. Thank you. Coastal side of US 19 was mandatory evacuated due to storm surge. I don't know where US 19 is. Is it up north, I'm guessing? Oh, it's up here. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, to be honest. I mean, anywhere even in here. Like, you know, these are all dangerous places. Like, right here, for example, you got a bunch... I mean, water will just surge up here into these docks and stuff. It's a horrible situation. And it will definitely happen there near Hudson. But yeah, there's just the geography of all these places. It just kind of stinks with storm surge. Like, storm surge could go surging up this river, too. All the way through this area. Could even get closer to the Homosassa Springs. And back near Yankeetown as well. Again, Cedar Key. I've mentioned this a few times, but there's one way in, one way out. It's way too risky. If you're in Cedar Key, get out. Don't stay. It's not a good idea. Cedar Key is literally the worst place to be at this point for this hurricane. Because the storm surge will just rip through. I mean, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is insanely high. So, I would not recommend staying in Cedar Key at this point. There's only one way out, and that bridge will probably be gone by tomorrow morning, so possibly even sooner than that. I've talked about St. Petersburg and Tampa a lot. Again, storm surge up to 4 to 7 feet if you're in that area. That's the bigger concern right now. Rainfall totals upwards of 4 to 6 feet. It's also possible. Or, sorry, rainfall totals up to 4 to 6 inches, not feet. Sorry, 4 to 6 inches is possible. So 4 to 6 feet would be a crazy story. It'd be worse than Harvey. Yeah, Reed Timmer's on Cedar Key. Jim Kentori's on Cedar Key. Yeah, there's some people on Cedar Key. But again, those are trained storm chasers. If you're a rookie storm chaser or a amateur storm chaser, please do not try to storm chase this. It's just way too risky. It's just not worth it. I mean, if you're chasing inland, it's a little bit different. But if you're chasing, like, on the immediate coastline, just don't. You know, just don't. It's a horrible idea. The only exception to that, I mean, I've storm chased Hurricane Nicole, which brought a couple feet of storm surge, but like, you know, down here near the Keys, it might not be nearly as bad, but even then, I just don't recommend storm chasing this if you've never done it before. It's just too risky. Yeah, it's just not worth it. Well, it'll be the most damaged area. The most damaged area will probably be between Cedar Key, Horseshoe Beach, back near Perry. This will be the area that has the largest concern in terms of the impacts. And that'll be mainly from storm surge. Again, storm surge is really the worst part of this entire thing in terms of the hurricane. Storm surge is almost always the worst part of hurricanes. So, again, storm surge is the worst thing about hurricanes. If you're on the immediate coastline, cannot stress it enough. If you are under one of those areas that the National Hurricane Center shows on that map, again, you can go to the National Hurricane Center website and look at it. They have a map that'll show you the areas that could get flooded over by how many feet of storm surge as well. Like, for example, I'm just going to pull up the map here. I'm not going to do every location because it would take way too much time. But this is the National Hurricane Center's map here that you can pull up on their website, all right? And it will show you a key down here, potential storm surge flooding. Let's go to, I don't know, let's go to St. Pete Beach, for example. The storm surge here is forecasted to get 3 feet or higher above ground. On the immediate coastline, it's expected to be greater than 6 feet above ground. So don't stay there. You know, that's just too dangerous. Water's going to flood into your home almost guaranteed with that sort of level. And also near Clearwater Beach, upwards of 9 feet above ground right along the beach there. Just way too risky. Let's go up the coast. Let's go to Hudson. Hudson, no way, no how. You're going to be above 9 feet above storm surge flooding. That's just insane. So many areas here along the coast. Let's see where we can find Cedar Key up here. This is Yankeetown. Again, Yankeetown, that's a no-go. It's a horrible spot to be as well. I might have passed Cedar Key. I don't have a clue. I think I did. No, I didn't. Oh, yeah, I did. It's down here somewhere. Here's Cedar Key. Notice this. Again, pretty much the entire island is in a red spot there of above 9 feet of storm surge in Cedar Key. Again, you should not stay there. You really should evacuate. Again, you can go to this map. Again, just go to the National Hurricane Center website and look up on Google. It's called the Storm Surge Flooding Map, and you can pull this up. It'll show you all the different locations of where there will be storm surge. And there could be storm surge apparently back over here as well, upwards of 1 feet along this river inland on the east coast of Florida. So, yeah, again, it's a really good map that you can look at, and it'll give you all the details, but just a horrible idea to stay in like Cedar Key, for example, and whatnot. It's just a horrible idea. Basically putting your life on risk with that sort of, again, they call it life-threatening storm surge for a reason. If you know any friends or family that are trying to stay in Cedar Key or Horseshoe Beach, I would just tell them you're crazy and leave, because it's just such a bad idea. Especially if everything plays out the way it's forecasted to be. This could be really bad for those areas, and it will be catastrophic damage and everything, and we saw it with Ian last year. People tried staying for Ian back over in Cape Coral, and storm surge was super rampant and went right into the town and whatnot, and Fort Myers and whatnot. It was horrible last year. Could very well be similar this year, for those, though, further up to the north. But even in Cape Coral, I mean, we'll still be looking at 2 to 4 feet of storm surge there as well. But storm surge over upwards of 15 feet is crazy. I mean, even Ian didn't have that forecasted as such. This is, again, the storm surge map. Just crazy numbers. Yeah, and last year, Reed Timmer, I'm pretty sure, actually got trapped on Sanibel Island. He lost his Dominator car. So it's just an example of what this can do. It's super risky. Obviously, it's a bit different. It was a Storm Chaser, but even if you're just living on one of these islands, I mean, your house could get wiped away from this type of storm surge. 10 to 15 feet of a peak storm surge from the Osceola River back through Yankee Town. That's just way too risky to be staying there. Yeah, that's a good point too. Some in the chat. If you second guess, if you need to leave, just leave. It's better safe than sorry. I 100% agree with that. Better to stay safe than sorry. Do not try to risk it, because again, this storm surge will be absurd here along the west coast of Florida. But again, further south you go, like near Charlotte Harbor, it's not nearly as bad, but if you're on the immediate coastline, you'll definitely see some storm surge there. Possibly slightly inland, and then back over near Tampa Bay, 4 to 7 feet. That's very concerning still. If you see if your area is in orange, red, or purple here, that means it's going to be very concerning. It's very well life-threatening. 2 to 4 feet is still life-threatening, especially if you're on the immediate coastline, and 1 to 3 feet can be life-threatening, but again, you would have to be on the immediate coastline there in most instances. But please, again, don't mess with it. Please just evacuate if you're along the coastline and if you're in that risk area, because it's going to be way too dangerous. Way, way, way too dangerous. Some of my favorite golf courses in South Carolina might get flooded. It's a possibility. I mean, across South Carolina and North Carolina, there's going to be a lot of rain there. Here's the rainfall forecast from the GFS model. Let me pull that up. I find the rainfall totals. Oh, it's down here. All right, here's the total precipitation forecast on like the GFS model, for example. So again, notice where the highest rainfall totals are. It's going to be on the western side, wherever this makes landfall, or even over the center of it where it makes landfall. Highest rainfall totals could actually be closer to the Apalachicola area, near Tallahassee. And again, 5 to 10 inches of rain is possible, all the way through even Augusta, for example. Augusta could see upwards of 4 to 8 inches. Columbia, same story, 3 to 6 inches. Fayetteville, going to be probably between 3 to 6 inches. It's going to be pretty extreme when it comes to the rainfall in these areas. Now, again, this is nothing in comparison to Ian for those that were in Florida. And Ian dumped 20 to 25 inches of rain, but even then, this is still a lot. That can definitely cause some flooding, for sure. By the way, Franklin, I mentioned this at the very beginning, but Franklin is weakening now. It is still a Category 4 hurricane, with sustained winds on around 130 miles per hour. It nearly got to a Category 5 last night. It's going to stay away from the United States, but it is posing life-threatening rip currents across the East Coast, as well as increased wave height. And then back over east of this, we have a new tropical depression that will become a low-end tropical storm, and then weaken as it goes to the north. So that's the latest on the other tropical activity, in case you were curious. But, yeah. There's also buoy data near where Idalia is. I'm gonna see if we have any sort of details here. Average wave period 6.6 seconds. Wave height is about 12 feet over here in this buoy right here. So this buoy is still pretty far away from land, but that's an idea of what we'll see tomorrow. Wave heights will be very high near the coastline tomorrow. Wave height 4 feet. That's on the very far western side of this entire thing. So again, almost 12-foot waves now on the northeast side of where this hurricane is. So just gives you an idea what the power is right now inside of Idalia. And it's going to get much worse as we go into tonight and tomorrow. And it'll probably go, it's expected to go under rapid intensification. And once it does so, it's going to really quickly strengthen into a Category 2 hurricane, to a Category 3 by the overnight hours into tomorrow morning, and eventually possibly near a low-end Category 4 is not out of the question. Lost power for about 2 weeks with Ian. Again, that's what this thing can do. And this thing could do the same exact thing if you're right along the coastline. It's a really bad situation when it comes to the overall dynamics of this entire system. It's really going to pound and hit a lot of people here across parts of western Florida. And it's not going to be good, unfortunately. It's really gonna be a devastating storm. And again, I've said this before, but I really hate hurricanes in general. They're just so bad. Hurricanes are really much worse than like an individual tornado in a lot of instances. They do so much damage. Thank you to Amy for the $5 super chat. I appreciate that. Southeast Michigan on Thursday. Oh, no problem. Appreciate you tuning in. Yeah. On Michigan on Thursday. That was a crazy tornado outbreak that happened back up there. Ian was a Category 4. After review, it was actually a Category 5 before landfall. So, yeah, Ian is gone. By the way, the letter I for names has been retired the most out of any letter in the alphabet when it comes to hurricanes. So, I'm pretty sure the I letter has been retired 14 times. This could be the 15th if it intensifies to the point where it's supposed to get to. So, throwing that into perspective, this could be a retired name later on. Friendly reminder, if you're just tuning in for the first time, make sure to subscribe down below. It's completely free to do. It's that red button down below. Subscribe. You'll stay up to date with the latest on the Max Velocity channel. We'll keep you posted with the latest on all the stuff that's happening with Hurricane Idalia. Make sure to like the stream as well. Helps us get this out to more people. Click the bell icon as well while you're down there to be notified with the latest videos and live streams. I will probably be live again tonight. Sometime around 10 is the ETA. I don't know 100% know if I'll be live, but if I go live, it'll probably at least be a couple hours. And then tomorrow I'll be live at some point, but I'm not sure when. I'm still going to be live here for a little while, so if you have questions, feel free to let me know as this continues to move to the north. Again, today's live stream is brought to you by Radar Omega. That's what we're using right now. You can check it out. Top link in the description below. Has satellite imagery, radar data, has computer models. You can do everything. It's an all-in-one radar app. Check it out. Top link in the description below. It's on your favorite mobile device on Android, and it's also on iOS. Check that out. Top link in the description below. This is the 3D view, by the way, of radar on this right now. It's kind of a little cool view of it. This is the 3D view of Idalia. This is on reflectivity, so not the satellite, but still kind of a little cool view here. But you can see these outer bands. This gives you a pretty good depiction here of the outer bands that are starting to move into western Florida. There have been so many hurricanes lately in different places. The Gulf of Mexico has been getting pounded by hurricanes over the past 5 to 10 years. It's been awful. It's like one a year, it feels like. Pretty much has been every year in the Gulf Coast. Alright, let me check Twitter real quick. And see if there's anything else on there. I'm not seeing anything new. Again, the tornado watch will probably be issued later today. Is my guess. It'll probably be issued around 5 o'clock. So, it's the ETA at this point. Will Naples be okay? If you're in Naples or Cape Coral, we are still looking at storm surge over there. So if you're anywhere along the coast, storm surge is possible between 2 to 4 feet. In addition to that, we are looking at a tornado risk to start to increase as we go into the afternoon hours, like later afternoon hours. So there will be a potential for a couple of tornadoes out of these storms that start to move inland. We are starting to see storms approaching the coast. Not seeing any rotation right now, but there's definitely going to be a chance for that as these do approach the coastline. So be mindful. Again, if you're along the west coast of Florida, that tornado risk will really start to ramp up after about 2 o'clock this afternoon. It still exists over the short term too, but it will ramp up a lot more as we go into the afternoon hours. I have family that lives in Sanibel. Are they going to be all right? Sanibel is the same story. Again, there will be storm surge up to 4 feet. So if you're going to be if you're in an area that can be affected by storm surge up to 4 feet, then you should probably evacuate, right? But check the National Hurricane Center website. They have an entire map there that'll tell you the specific locations and show you how high the waters will get with the storm surge that's forecasted. Because that'll give you an idea. Otherwise, tropical storm force winds, a couple tornadoes are possible in that area as well. Water spouts definitely possible. It's off your coast. Thank you, Sean, for the 199. I don't know what that place is. Zephyril Hills. Got a little bit. Let's go to the live radar. You're mainly looking at tropical storm force winds. You might get upwards of hurricane force winds if you're up there south of Dade City. It's pretty much it. Flooding rains are also possible. Rainfall totals between 3 to 6 inches are possible. Storm surge is possible, but that'll be off to your west. That'll be west of US 19. But yeah, if you're like in the Dade City area, you're primarily looking up to hurricane force winds. Thank you again for your 199. you think Ocala, Florida is safe to evacuate to? There's a tornado warning. Ocala is probably fine, but you're still looking at hurricane force winds there anyways. If you're to evacuate, it's a bit safer to go toward like Orlando, Deltona. Those areas are a little bit safer, but Ocala is fine, but there will still be high winds there, most likely. They could be hurricane force winds, so that is definitely in play over there. All right, we do have a tornado warning that was just issued. This is back down south of Cape Coral. This is again for Marco Island. This is your second tornado warning in the past hour and 50 minutes. That's crazy. This is a new tornado warning back over closer to Marco Island. And seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible if you're included in this tornado warning. The storm is 15 miles south of Marco Island. Let me just make sure we're looking at the right storm here. Marco Island. So it's going to be this one down here. Or even this one too. But there's two areas of rotation that we have. There's one that's going to be back down that fart cell that's further down to the south. So we have rotation down here. We also have rotation here. So again, brand new tornado warning going toward Marco Island. Seek shelter immediately away from windows and on the lowest floor possible as this storm does continue to move off to the north. And this is going to be a common theme today. There will be probably a lot of tornado warnings. We will probably at least see a few tornadoes today. And in addition to that, there will be a chance for a strong and possibly violent tornado. So we have to watch that threat very closely. This isn't really in a prime position for a violent tornado at this point, but this still has a threat for producing a tornado as it approaches Marco Island. So again, seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible if you're included in this tornado warning. From Marco Island, this is south of Naples and south of the Cape Coral area near Marco Island. We have two pockets of rotation, one back here, and then there's another one right here. Moving off to the north-northwest. Water temperatures around 86 to 87 degrees Fahrenheit in the Gulf. It's a bit warmer the further north and east you go in the Gulf, so like near Cedar Key, for example, it's upwards of 87 degrees. Here's the latest radar scan. So again, a couple pockets of rotation there, moving off to the north. And they're not overly strong, but they definitely could produce a tornado as they approach inland areas. So definitely stay in your safe place, away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. And from Marco Island and just west of there, west of the West Dismal Key. Tallahassee is mainly a wind threat, but it depends on where this makes landfall. So, if it makes landfall near Tallahassee, you could be talking about winds upwards of 100 miles per hour, but that would be tomorrow. That wouldn't be tonight. Or it could be tonight, like overnight tonight, like tomorrow morning, more than anything. That's when that would start to ramp up. But, I mean, there won't be storm surge there. There could be some flooding rains as well tomorrow. Tomorrow's more concerning, though, for Tallahassee, not today. We won't see a whole lot today. How could there be a violent tornado? It's because how much shear we have. Hurricanes, they produce a ton of wind profiles, are very favorable in a lot of instances with these outer bands. Good storm direction. Overall, on the eastern side, that's usually where we see tornadoes, is on the southeast and east side. Sometimes on the northeast side. This is like kind of on the east-northeast side of where this hurricane is right now in correlation. But these are moving more north-northwest. But yeah, these do spin a lot more. Thank you, Gamer for 199, thinking about evacuating Miami. Miami should be fine. I'm not really expecting much there. Miami will be up to tropical storm force winds, but I don't even think they'll get there. You might see wind gusts up to like 35 miles per hour tomorrow, but storm surge is not expected there. But there will be dangerous rip currents, and the wave heights will be increased along the coast. Thank you, Lash for the 199. Trucker here, do I drive I-95 Florida today? Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina to New Jersey. You probably should go today because the winds will pick up tomorrow, unless you want to wait until after this passes. Now, Miami doesn't have to evacuate. I mean, unless you have a mandatory evacuation order, but I doubt you do. And there's no warnings even over here for tropical storm warnings. You're not expecting storm surge. Maybe an isolated tornado risk somewhere there, but it's not that high. Tropical storm warnings are off to your west anyways. This entire area in southeast Florida should be fine. I mean, you're not really being impacted by storm surge. Orlando will be looking at tropical storm force winds. And also potential for maybe a couple inches of rain, and there also is a low-end tornado risk as well. This is the latest radar scan. Let's see if we have any definitive areas of rotation. Again, the rotation on this storm is kind of in here. It's weakening out a little bit. And this is moving off to the north toward Marco Island. Stay in your safe place, away from windows on the lowest floor possible. If you're in Marco Island, the storm could very well drop a tornado at any time as it moves inland, but it's still a few miles out. Yeah, this is off coast. Could have a water spout involved as well. So we'll continue to move off to the northwest. Let me just see if there's any other details here. Yeah, this is Marco Island's second tornado warning in the past 90 minutes. So it's going to probably be a frequent spot for tornado warnings because these are all coming right off the coast. Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, again, if you're in Cedar Key, you should be evacuating. There's just no doubt about it. That place is going to be flooded over. Up to 15 feet of storm surge is possible in Cedar Key. Again, I said 15, not like 1. I said 15 feet of storm surge. That means water will be like 9 feet above ground at least across parts of Cedar Key. And there's only one road in and out, and that bridge will probably be destroyed by tomorrow morning. And there's not going to be any way to get out or get in other than boats, which even then, it'll be way too dangerous at that point. So, better to evacuate Cedar Key and not stay there. Check. Yeah, there's rotation there. I mean, you can even see it on here. It's a little bit harder to see, but this is the rotation. It's going to be right in here. So it's going to be right here, south of Marco Island. Again, it's not very strong right now. It's still kind of broad, but it very well could produce a water spout that will move inland. And might be a brief, weak tornado at this point. But obviously, if you're on Marco Island, just play it safe and seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. If you're in Marco Island or in the Goodland area. Again, this is now the second tornado warning today. The first one I don't think did produce a tornado, but this one obviously could as well. Moves off to the northwest. If you're in St. Petersburg or in Tampa Bay, again, we are talking about the potential for, there might be some hurricane force winds, so that's a threat. Storm surge up to 7 feet, and as well as the threat for rainfall totals upwards of 3 to 6 inches. Isolated 8 inches of rain is also possible. Goes for Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg, Bradenton, anywhere in that Bay area. So that's the threat. Again, if you're right on the immediate coastline and you're the threat of storm surge, you should definitely probably evacuate if you are on the immediate coastline there. If you have any photos or videos, you can feel free to send those in to me on my Twitter page, @MaxVelocityWX. So if you have any photos, videos, anything like that, feel free to send that in to me. Again, on Twitter, @MaxVelocityWX. Right now, there could be a water spout ongoing with this. Pretty strong rotation now in the last couple minutes. We're not going to see anything on the correlation coefficient since no debris is being lifted up, but there is currently some tight rotation just south of Marco Island. So it looks like there's at least a water spout ongoing with this. And this will be moving into Marco Island over the next few minutes. This is what Marco Island looks like. So, again, if you're on Winterberry Drive, Barfield Drive, and as well as the Heathwood Drive, all those areas, again, Collier Drive, you should be in your safe place. Anywhere, again, in Marco Island, you should be in your safe place, including Goodland as well. Rotation's definitely a little bit stronger than before. Here's a look at it right now. These are your winds going away from the radar. That's going toward the radar. Overall, counterclockwise, 98% of tornadoes are counterclockwise spin. Right now, we're not seeing really tight rotation, but it is strong. Very well could produce a tornado at any time. And even if it doesn't produce a tornado, we are looking at some high winds here. 50 miles per hour, 60 miles per hour. So there's definitely some damaging wind potential with this as it moves off to the north. Will schools be canceled for West Palm Beach? No. No way, no how. If you're in West Palm Beach, you're not going to really see anything. This is currently a hurricane, and it is expected to strengthen into a Category 3 hurricane. Again, there is a chance it gets to a Category 4 level. Yeah, this is a little bit of a weird one. Let's go to the live reflectivity. Yeah, it's kind of on the eastern side. It's not really organized in terms of like we have an inflow and all that stuff. We'll see more organized tornadic cells later today. This isn't overly organized. But with these coming ashore, it definitely has a chance for a tornado. Still very strong velocities though with this. Strong velocities going towards the Caxham Boss area and Marco Island. Yeah, if you're on Marco Island, or if you even know anybody on there, you should give them a call or text. But if you're on Marco Island, again, get to your safe place. Strong rotation is offshore. It's about to come onshore here in a moment. In addition to that, the winds are probably going to be strong anyways, so there will probably be, possibly at least, some trees knocked down from these winds. Because the winds right now, I mean, radar's estimating actually higher than 50. It's upwards of 60 to 70 in the peak of these velocities, which means at the surface, it's probably near 60. Winds are definitely high as this is continuing to move to the north. Yeah, if you're just tuning in, this is a tornado warning south of Cape Coral and south of Naples, going toward Marco Island. And seek shelter if you're in Marco Island. Rotation has become a bit stronger over the last several minutes. The winds are definitely higher as well as this is moving toward Marco Island. Savannah, Georgia has potential for flooding rains, and if you're on the immediate coastline, storm surge is also going to be possible. Those are the main concerns for your location. Yes, there are computer models that show this getting into a Category 4 hurricane. Again, it's possible. It's not certain by any means. It is a possibility. It depends on how this rapid intensification goes over the next several hours, because if it does go really quickly, it's definitely possible it gets up there to a Category 4 hurricane. But again, if it does get to a Category 4, it would be on the lower side of things. So it'd be pretty close to where the current forecast is, which the current forecast is up to 130 mile per hour, or 125 mile per hour winds, excuse me. So it's very close to it. And strong winds right now over, just about to go over Marco Island. If you're in Marco Island, stay away from windows. This is just about to approach Marco Island, and it's just to the southwest of Goodland. That's where the strongest area of rotation is. And there could very well be a water spout with this, but there are high winds. The radar right now is estimating winds pretty strong, around 70 miles per hour. So there's definitely some damaging wind potential with this as it moves off to the north-northwest. The winds are definitely going to be picking up here. No doubt about it. Here's a good graphic, by the way, that is understanding the storm surge. Really fantastic graphic here. Just saw on the screen here. Zoom out a little bit. Here's the storm surge, though. This is an idea of what can be expected. So in Cedar Key, this is what you can expect. The water will be above your head. It will be well above your head. Even 0 to 3 feet. That's still, you know, above kids. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. Like, storm surge is no joke. This is what we are looking at for tomorrow. And again, go to the National Hurricane Center website, look at the storm surge map, and see if you're in one of those areas to be impacted by storm surge, like, significantly. Because again, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge is possible in the Big Bend. But you can look at your specific location and see where you're on this scale. Because you could very well be at that greater than 9 feet stage. It's very well possible. So, highly recommend you look at that. Here's the latest radar scan. High winds now on the southern side of Marco Island. Again, a tornado or a water spout could be ongoing here right off the coast. About to be going inland here on Marco Island. And here are your winds going away from the radar. That's going toward the radar. And counterclockwise spin. This would be where the tornado is located if it's on the ground right now. Right here. About to be over the Marco Island area. Tornado warning does go until 1:30 Eastern Time. I do not expect a Category 5 out of this. That would be a really long stretch. Does not have as much time as Ian did. Ian was a Category 3 when it went into the Gulf, into the Gulf of Mexico. This was a Category 1 when it went in, which is going further to the north, obviously. It's going to make landfall in the Big Bend, but it's also going faster, and the shear's just a little bit stronger to prevent some aspects of it strengthening that far. So, I don't think this gets to a Cat 5, but it will probably at least get to a Cat 3, perhaps a low-end Category 4. California was the first hurricane this year. Yeah, it's pretty weird. I don't think we've ever said that before. Pretty crazy. Yeah, tornadoes do happen quite often with tropical storms and hurricanes before they even make landfall. So we're dealing with a tornado risk today here across Florida. So, all right, here's the strong area of rotation. Again, this is going to be right here. It's just south of Marco Island. It's about to come ashore. High winds are ongoing here on the east side of Marco Island. So those high winds are going to be along the Bearfield Drive. That's where winds can be as high as 70 miles per hour. Then back over near Winterberry Drive. That's where they'll be approaching, like right now. So get to your safe place. Heathwood, San Marco Road, Collier Road, all those areas currently included in the high wind potential upwards of 70 mile per hour winds. That again is your rotation. It's about to enter the very southwestern probably part of the island. You should stay in your safe place away from windows and on the lowest floor possible if you're anywhere right now in this tornado warning, which does include Goodland and Marco Island. This is an on-the-ground tornado. So this tornado is now on the ground. This is confirmed. Weather spotters have reported water spouts moving ashore. So again, confirmed tornado on the ground. Moving to the north. Seek shelter away from windows and lowest floor possible if you're included in this tornado warning. And it's an on-the-ground tornado moving off to the northwest toward Marco Island. Seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. This is again on the ground going into Marco Island. And the water spouts or tornado, which again, they are reported water spouts moving ashore, which would be a tornado by then, would be going over Marco Island right now. So seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible. Water spouts or now tornadoes would likely be over this area. So there could be multiple of them. There might only be one. So just seek shelter away from windows and on the lowest floor possible the next few minutes as this continues to come ashore. The radar scan prior to this was much stronger. It looks like it's weakened out a little bit, but the water spouts will be located in here, perhaps up in here as well. There's a few areas where they could be. So stay in your safe place away from windows and on the lowest floor possible if you are included in this ongoing tornado warning. I'm not seeing anything on the correlation coefficient right now, which would indicate debris being lofted in the atmosphere, but it's definitely entirely possible that these are, coming ashore and being brief. So we might even see tornadoes in between radar scans as well. This is our first possible first tornado. These are at least water spouts at the bare minimum, though. And this is in Collier County. This is south of Cape Coral. It's also south of Naples. This is in Marco Island. And your safe place away from windows, lowest floor possible if you're included in this tornado warning. And the last radar scan was much more intense, though. And these are definitely water spouts offshore. So if the next radar scan shows, it's probably weakening a little bit, but we'll see. Yeah, most tornadoes and hurricanes, they're usually not on the stronger side of things. They're usually around category or EF0 to EF2. EF2 is a strong tornado technically, but there is a potential for a strong, possibly even violent tornado today and tomorrow, which could be EF2, EF3 type stuff. We've seen strong tornadoes out of hurricanes before, so it's entirely possible. The environment's ripe for it. With this, as it intensifies, as it moves off to the north, that threat will increase more. If there's still a tornado on the ground, it's going to be over the center part of Marco Island. Here's a zoomed-in look. We don't have any definitive areas of rotation right now, but there is a chance for a tornado legitimately in anywhere in this area here. So, if you're in Marco Island, again, stay in your safe place. The tornado warning does get lifted in 6 minutes. Technically in 36 minutes with this new tornado warning. So, that's what we have right now for this area. Also, more rotation down here to the south. There's going to probably be another tornado warning long-term with the rotation that we have further down here to the south. Again, you're probably going to have multiple tornado warnings today if you're in Marco Island. Again, we do currently have, as of now, a confirmed water spouts that have come ashore, so there's likely been a tornado at this point, at least one, maybe even a couple. But as of right now, the rotation is over the center part of the island. It's unknown if they're still on the ground at this point, but it could be. That's over the center part of Marco Island. The hurricane impacts will start as early as tonight. Tropical storm warnings are obviously in effect and hurricane warnings, but tropical storm force winds will begin as early as 3 to 4 o'clock here on the west coast. So those impacts will start to ramp up later today. Water spouts are, yeah, they're simply tornadoes over water. That's the easiest way to put it. That's all that is. Thank you, by the way, Liz, for the $4.99 super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you. Might have missed that. And right now, the possible tornadoes are still located over Marco Island. We have a new special marine warning that has been issued across the areas here from Naples all the way back through areas in rural Leon Hamilton Place area. And this is a new special marine warning for winds as high as 50 knots, which is about 55 miles per hour, and as well as potential for a few water spouts. Rotation now is on the northern side of the island, so that's where we're at with the rotation. Just off to the north now of Marco Island, but the rotation does seem to be fizzling out at this point. It's not nearly as intense as before. Could still see an isolated tornado though on the ground as this goes toward Isles of Capri. And then after that, this will probably go a little bit more to the north-northwest. So Shell Island, Naples could even be hit by this later on. So if you're in Naples, stay weather aware. This is a tornado-warned cell. It is kind of going your direction right now. It's moving to the north. So we'll be going toward Port Royal and Naples long-term with the potential for a water spout or two, possibly even a brief tornado. All right, we have another radar scan. Let's check it out. Might even have a little bit of a... There's a pretty good pocket here of heavy rain, at least. Might even be a little bit of small hail with this, but right here near Marco Island, that pink usually does represent small hail if it's a more intense environment for hail, but I'm pretty sure it's just heavy rain. Again, rotation's gonna be up here near on the northern side of Marco Island. Stay in your safe place for the next few minutes. The tornado warning does not get lifted until 2 o'clock. The observed tornado warning, 1:30 for the ongoing radar indicated tornado warning. This is a new tornado warning, though, that goes until 2 o'clock Eastern time. I'm going to say tornado warning that is ongoing. This is all associated with the outer bands of Idalia. So Idalia on the live radar feed, you can see it out here. This is Idalia. That's where it's at. So it's going north right now. It's been wobbling a little bit. It's going pretty much zigzagging, so it's going north though right now. As this continues to move to the north, we're going to continue to see some of these outer bands like this one, for example, that'll continue to bring the threat for water spouts and as well as tornadoes ashore eventually. So this will all continue to start to move inland. A tornado watch will likely be issued later today once we have more organized outer bands, and once this hurricane's up here, this will allow for more of these outer bands to produce more of a tornado threat along the west coast and central parts of Florida. So that's the long-term threat in terms of tornadoes as we go down the road. Thank you, Jerry, as well, by the way, for becoming a minimum velocity member. I appreciate it. Welcome to the Velocities. Here's the latest radar scan. We're on the wrong radar site. Here's the latest one, though. Again, there is some rotation still that's back up here near the Isles of Capri, so we might have another water spout, perhaps a tornado. This will be going towards Shell Island and Old Marco Junction. If you're in those areas, and stay away from windows, lowest floor possible. Definitely have some heavy rain as well on the north side of Marco Island. Here's that latest radar scan. So yeah, if there's any tornadoes still ongoing, they would be right in here. Possible water spouts as well. That's moving outside of the tornado warning. They'll be going towards Shell Island and Old Marco Junction. Excuse me. So right now, Marco Island is not really in a position where we're going to see a tornado again for at least a little while. There are two areas of rotation to your south and west, or south and east, excuse me, that these will be going up toward you. So if you're in Marco Island, you'll have a third chance pretty much of a tornado or water spout down the road. So it'll be another chance in about half an hour. You've already had 2 tornado warnings today, and you might have a third one later. Yeah, I report on like the power outage map and all that. Yeah, there will be obviously a lot of power outages tomorrow, so I will have, access to the map and whatnot in terms of power outages. Right now, there aren't that many power outages in Florida right now, because there hasn't been really a whole lot yet. The most power outages in a given county is back over in Lee County, which is actually down here near Marco Island, and there's about 697 people without power out of like 500,000. So, I mean, there will be obviously more power outages as we go throughout the day, and obviously tonight. Yeah, Daytona Beach got hit hard last year. There's a lot of areas that got hit hard. Flooding rains were really a huge thing last year. Absolutely downpoured everywhere. I mean, there was upwards of 20 inches of rain in some occasions last year. 25 inches even in some spots. Last year was really bad. This year, again, Ian was 9 miles per hour upon landfall, the movement. This will be 17 miles per hour upon landfall, so flooding rains is not going to be as bad as what Ian was, but there will still be some flooding. Especially for those that are near the landfall site, back into parts of southern Georgia and parts of northern Florida. Here's the latest radar scan. Looks like it's weakening out overall in terms of rotation. So that's moving up to the north. It's going to be going toward Port Royal and Naples. Again, Marco Island right now is where we do have currently some ongoing storm activity. Still a little bit of lightning as well with this. Heavy rainfall. But the next tornado threat will be down to your south. This will probably arrive in about half an hour. Looks like there's probably at least a water spout ongoing. But this activity right here, some stronger rotation. So that'll be a concern down the road for sure as this moves off to the north. The better chance of you losing power is if you're in a hurricane warning. If you're in a hurricane warning, you have a much higher chance of losing power. If you're in a tropical storm warning, it's a lower chance overall. If you're in a hurricane warning, make sure you're prepared for power outages, especially even if you're in a tropical storm warning. You should still be prepared because power outages could last possibly days, if not even sometimes weeks. There is a tornado risk in Jacksonville. It's a bit higher tomorrow morning and afternoon, but there is a chance tonight, but it's going to be a bit on the lower side of things. They're going to update the cone. I don't think they'll update the cone at 2 p.m. It'd probably be a very minor change. If they do anything, they might do something. I don't know. But at 5 p.m., that's their bigger update, basically. So there will probably be some larger changes at 5 p.m. if there are any large changes. So my plan is for today, for those that are wondering, again, make sure you're subscribed. Can't stress that enough. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We'll keep you updated with Hurricane Idalia as it makes landfall and all that sort of stuff. But my stream plan for today is that I'll be live here for a few more minutes. I have classes pretty shortly, so I have to get to those. But I'll be live here for a few more minutes. And then I'll be live again probably tonight. Not guaranteed, but probably around 10 p.m. Eastern time or so. I'll be live from then until probably around 12 to 1 in the morning. Depends on if classes are canceled. They've yet to been canceled, but if they do end up getting canceled, then that'll be the plan. And then I might go live again tomorrow afternoon or evening for coverage on Idalia as it goes up the East Coast. So possibly for South Carolina and North Carolina. So that's my plan right now. Again, all that stuff is subject to change, but make sure you're subscribed to the channel. You're staying up to date. And also click the bell icon down below. That way you're notified if and when I go live. That's the best way to do it. We'll keep you posted with the latest on everything that's happening. If I do go live tonight, it would obviously be a very busy live stream because this is that by the time I go live, this will be making landfall in about 8-10 hours. So computer models are not always the best. I mean, they definitely help, but sometimes they can overpredict things going too far west and east and stuff like that. So, I mean, I wouldn't get too caught up in the computer models and where they're showing it going. It's very possible still that this goes further to the east, further to the west. Computer models so far have been showing it's going to go further west this entire time. Like, this entire time it's been showing further west, even though this has been kind of slightly further to the east. You can see its track. It's actually been going more. Initially, it was going more to the northeast. But now it's going a little bit more to the north. It's kind of going a little bit, like, again, zigzagging a little bit. There's a good chance, though, it kind of just stays up this line and goes off to the north and northeast. But, again, the ridge, if it's strong enough, that's back over in the southeast, or back in, like, the Bahamas, for example. If it's strong enough, this will go more to the north toward Tallahassee. But if it's not strong enough and it as intense, Cedar Key would probably be the landfall spot. If not, maybe near Horseshoe Beach. A Category 3 hurricane is likely. A Category 4 hurricane is possible, but it's a lower chance overall. Again, we'll have to see how the rapid intensification goes this afternoon. And by 5 p.m., if it's, a Category 2 hurricane with sustained winds exceeding 100 miles per hour, possibly even like upwards of 110, we'll have to definitely look in to see if, maybe it comes to Category 4, because it is entirely possible. Just, again, it's a bit lower of a chance overall. All right, the rotation on this tornado warning is no longer inside of this tornado warning. It has moved outside of it and is weaker than before. No rotation over Marco Island right now. The next chance for a tornado will be out of these storms that are back down to your south and east. Those could very well produce a tornado as they move off to the north. So we'll be watching for that very closely as they all move out that direction. But that's gonna be it for this live stream today. I have to get classes, so I can't go live for longer, but I will probably be live again tonight. So again, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click that red button down below so you're notified if and when we go live. I will likely be live again later tonight. That would be probably a start time of about 10 o'clock Eastern time or so. Again, give or take an hour or two on that. It might be a brief live stream. It might be a longer one. We'll see what happens. But check it out. Again, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you're notified if and when I go live. Make sure to like the stream if you enjoyed it, found it informative. And again, we'll keep you posted with the latest details, all right? Again, we're doing honest forecasting here. We're keeping it updated. No hype. Just giving you the facts here with everything that you know about Hurricane Idalia. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Click the red button down below. It's free to do. That bell icon after you subscribe, you can click it. Click on all notifications so you get notified when I go live tonight. If I do, again, it's not 100% sure yet, but I'll probably go live. Today's live stream was brought to you by Radar Omega. You can download it with the top link in the description below. Again, download Radar Omega. That's what we've been using throughout this entire live stream. It's $8.99 on iOS and Android. It is totally worth it. I highly recommend it. Again, you can get on your favorite mobile device, iOS or Android. Check it out. Top link in the description below. Has the satellite data, computer models, radar, everything that you need for this hurricane. They even have, actually, they're putting up right now these or Project Mesovort, which is a bunch of live cams on the beaches. You can check those out as well. Make sure to check it out. Again, top link in the description below. All right, guys, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Stay safe. I will probably have another update tonight, so make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if I don't have another update tonight, I will probably be live at some point tomorrow anyways. So, again, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon so you're notified if and when I go live. And stay tuned. We'll keep posted with the latest, all right? Stay safe. Stay tuned for the latest at the National Hurricane Center. And again, we'll keep posted with any new details. No hype forecast here. Make sure to stay tuned. Have a great, safe rest of your afternoon. And we'll keep you guys all posted. Again, live stream possible tonight. Make sure to subscribe. See you guys all.